and welcome to SkepTalk, the show where I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I'm super excited because today I'm all by myself. I don't have a guest host, which is weird for me. It's very strange. Usually I like to have somebody to like riff off of and talk to, but today you just get like a full dose of me. And so I'm excited to take calls. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited to answer your questions. I'm really hoping that somebody calls in and talks about something about God being good, because that's always something that gets me riled up. I hope that people have questions about biology. If you have any science-related things, especially about biology, especially about evolution, that's something that I would love to talk to you about. If you want to talk a little bit about what it is to be a human and the human condition and what makes us special and what makes us weird as animals, that's another thing that I would love to talk about. So if you would like to know a thing or two about science, if you have questions, if you are very religious and want to tell me about it, then please call the number at the bottom of the screen and just hit me up, because the whole point of this show is to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions and learn new stuff and challenge me and challenge other atheists and have as much fun as possible. So please call in and let's get talking. Before we begin, however, normally at this point in the show, I would spend this time kind of riffing with my co-hosts and discussing what they're up to right now and what sort of things they're doing. I don't have that opportunity. So I'm going to very briefly tell you about a thing that I've got going on that I hope you'll enjoy. And then also just tell you a cool, fun thing that I want more people to think about as far as biology is concerned. The new cool thing that I've got going on that I hope you check out is over on my YouTube channel. Do it after this show. It's called The Light of Evolution. It's a 4-part series on how evolutionary biology works, taught at a totally introductory level in plain English that anybody can understand so long as you speak plain English. It's written for like high school, early college age to be able to pick up on. Episode 1 deals with just terminology, understanding the basics of evolution. We compare the evolution of things like whales and things like viruses. Episode 2 talks about facts and fossils. It's all about how we know what we know. Episode 3 is about evolutionary mechanisms. It's called genes and generations. And episode 4, which just came out earlier this week, right before Christmas, is all about how evolution ties all of biology together and connects you with the rest of life on this entire planet and indeed the rest of the universe. It's a radically cool series. If I do say so myself, it's a big passion project. So I hope you go check it out. It would really mean the world to me. And then also, because, I'm a biologist and an educator, that's my whole jam. I want to make sure to give you guys the opportunity to learn some cool stuff. So before we get started, I'm going to take this opportunity to just teach you about a really cool thing in biology, and that really cool thing is called niche construction theory. Niche construction is all about the idea that you change the niche that you're in, you adapt, you change the environment, and then you evolve into that new niche. And so, like when you talk about evolutionary biology, it's all about adapting to your environment, fitting into your niche properly. And so, like if you have some sort of a tree type situation, you have like a bunch of like this forest, all these trees here, and you have all these lizards living in these trees. Well, then you can have what's called niche partitioning. You can have just the lizards in the top canopy, and they develop longer toes and longer tails for gripping onto branches and balancing. And you have the sort of middle range lizards with sharp little claws for climbing. And you have the lower level lizards, which have, short little fingers and short little limbs, and they're really good at scampering around the ground. And so they've partitioned this niche up into different pieces. But with niche construction, rather than trying to break down a niche and find a little place to live in, you actually build the niche that you live in. You build where you live, and then because of the new selection pressures that you've just created, you now adapt in that direction. And this is something that's really important for us, especially as humans, because that's how we became what we are today. The history of our species, especially over the past 2.6 million years, has been tool making. That's what defines the genus Homo, is tool making. And you go back a little earlier, you see the Lamechian tools, which I'm not a huge fan of, because they're definitely deliberately broken rocks. I don't like it when people say that they're tools, because a lot of these were like as heavy as an adult human being today. And we're talking about like Kenyanthropus platyops or maybe Australopithecus afarensis or africanus, pardon me, as the ones lifting these things. I don't want to see the freaking ape that can pick up a 200-pound stone and use it as a tool. Fuck that. But definitely starting with Homo habilis and moving forward, the history of humanity is creating niches, is finding ways to make a tool to break a bone open and get bone marrow, to control fire. We've been controlling fire for the past at least million or so years. It was Homo erectus was the first one to control fire. Homo erectus was the first one to build boats. Homo erectus was the first one to sail, to get outside of Africa and explore around the world. We see us making houses. We see us making beds. Down in South Africa, there's these amazing caves with these woven mats of grasses and big broadleaf sedges and fresh smelling medicinal herbs, and also ashes so that bugs can't crawl through them and bite you in your sleep. We see the history of humanity, of our lineage, is making the environment better for us and then adapting to the new selection pressures of that new environment that we have created. And this is why we get bigger and bigger brains, and we start walking upright a lot more than our all ancestors. We're long distance persistence runners, and we get really, really good fine dexterity and fine motor skills. All of the morphological and behavioral adaptations of humanity arise in this time. And it's a really cool thing to think about. And what matters about it today is that we have the opportunity to take charge of that consciously. And we can decide, not evolutionarily, because that has to do with selection pressures, but as far as like what we go as a society, we have a choice now to decide what kind of niche we're going to live in and what kind of world we're going to live in. Take some responsibility for ourselves and for other people around us, and decide how many people are we going to let be homeless? How many people are we going to let be starving? How many people are we going to let live in poverty and in squalor? How many species are we going to let go extinct? How many ecosystems are we going to destroy? We can decide to make those things better. And the myth that these are just inevitable parts of life for us anymore, with fucking helicopter on Mars and airplanes and vaccines and the internet that you're watching me with right now, with the sheer amount of amazing technologies and skills we have available to us, it is absolutely within our power to make this world a better and brighter place for absolutely everybody. And these things that that continue to plague us, this poverty, this disease, this homelessness, this helplessness, hunger, thirst, these things that continue to plague humanity to this day, these are policy decisions. They are absolutely voluntary things that we could choose to stop if we wanted to. We just need global efforts to do so. And on that note, yesterday on the holiday stream, I was going on a rant about capitalism and why I'm very much not a fan. And at the end of it, I was saying there's no such thing as a communist country. There has never been a truly communist country yet. But I misspoke because I was on a roll, and I said there's never been a capitalist country, because capitalist countries are classless and stateless and moneyless. Anybody who knows what I was talking about should have caught that I misspoke, but I watched that again later that night, and I buried my head in my hands in shame. So there's never been a communist country. That's what I was trying to say. Wanted to correct that and also teach a cool thing about niche construction theory. Those are two things that I wanted to get out of the way right off the bat. And with that, that's usually the time that I would spend dicking around. So I wanted to teach you a cool thing and then correct myself that I misspoke yesterday. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry about that. But if you watch that, that's what I meant. And with that, we already have several calls on the line, and I want to get to as many of them.
You got some spice waiting for you, really.
Yeah, I see there's a couple up here.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to start with Charles from Florida. Pronouns are he, him. Charles, you're on the line. And I see here you say that you're ready to debate evolution and how good God is. Now, that is precisely what I was talking about at the beginning. Are you joking, or is that actually what you want to talk about? Charles, are you there?
Something has gone wrong. We're going to put Charles back in the queue, and I'm going to figure out what's up.
Okay. We will keep trying with Charles. Also, I just saw the banner, debate me if you dare. Get rid of it. God, that's terrible. I'm going to move on.
And at least one person who called in said that that's why they called in. But let me try. I'm going to reset this real quick.
Okay. We're resetting the call thing, the line, the lines on the line.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. We'll let everybody hear it. Little behind the scenesies.
Exactly. You're getting a serious sneak peek right here. This is special treatment.
Oh wait, I wonder if it's okay. Yeah, give me a second. Just keep talking about whatever for a minute. I gotta fix something.
Cool.
The system is.
Keep talking about some other thing. You know what's really awesome to think about, that I think about quite a lot, that makes me happy, is plants. Plants are wise things, and we could learn a lot from them. What's beautiful about plants is that they know how to do things that we don't. They know how to turn air and sunlight into food and medicine. And the most exceptional thing about plants is that they know how to do that, and then they give it away for free. And that especially is just a remarkable thing. They're gift-giving creatures. That's what they're all about. All they want to do is just
connect. Click connect to show
ready
now.
To connect.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host.
You
are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
Everybody hearing this? Yeah.
Everybody hearing this robot?
The robot had a lot to say. All right, there you go.
Okay, cool. We're gonna try it again. Think about plants, y'all. I'm gonna go back to Charles. We're gonna see if he can hear us now. Charles, can you hear me? You're on the line.
Hi. Forrest, what a nice pleasure to meet you.
Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you too. I'm so sorry about the trouble there. I'm so happy that you stuck around. You said you wanted to debate evolution and how good God is. If you're serious about that, sounds like a fantastic call.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I wanted, because it says in the screen, debate Forrest if you dare. So that's why I'm here. I'm ready. You know, it's a pleasure to meet you. I can see you are a very smart guy, and you're very knowledgeable. But you are lacking of so much information that I would like to share with you. You know, and the first thing that I wanted to ask you, besides that, you know, I've been seeing all the calls that you have made, all the callers, you know, from theists and believers, and I can understand why you guys wouldn't believe these people, because these people still don't know the truth, you know. And that's one of the things that I was calling, because, and the first question that I wanted to ask you is that if, God created everything, but who told you that evolution and science, that is not part of the creation? Who told you that?
Okay, so I wasn't told that. It's just that the whole idea of a creation story is an independent claim. So saying that evolution is a part of that, you first have to prove that that thing is real. So like, I know for sure that, you know, like that this water bottle exists, but if I were to say this water bottle came from a magical factory that, you know, poops out water bottles from another dimension, that would be another claim in itself. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with that. That you have to first demonstrate that this creationism is true, and then say that evolution is part of it.
Oh no, of course, that's where I go. Like, but you are basing on that because you think that God is the God from the Bible, and that's not how it works. It's not. For example, if you were born in the Middle East, then you would have been probably from the Islamic religion. If you would have been born in another place, you would have belonged in another religion. And guess what? It's only one design, one planet, one religion, one God. But that doesn't mean that it's the God from the Bible. The Bible, remember, it was written by men. So, therefore, it's going to be mistakes, there's going to be contradictions, and it's going to be made-up stories. For example, the story of Abraham telling Abraham, hey, I want you to sacrifice your son because I want you to prove your love for me. And then you will ask yourself, what kind of God will make you do something like that? You know, God is benevolent. God doesn't hurt babies. God doesn't kill anybody, you know. That's the mistake that everyone makes in the world. That's why we're still doing everything wrong, and that's why we're living in a world like this. And I understand why you wouldn't believe, but because nobody has ever told you the truth yet. But you will know very
really quickly,
soon.
I want to just clarify one thing, because I agree with most of what you said, especially insofar as, like, depending on where you're born is what kind of religion you're brought up in. This is a big bone of contention that I have a lot of the times when people tell me that they know the one right religion and it just happens to be the one that they grew up with, right? So I agree entirely with that. I also agree entirely with the idea that a lot of the stories in the Bible, like the one you mentioned, are contemptible and really don't teach a good moral lesson at all. The biggest difference that I have, the one thing that I don't think that I've, maybe you haven't heard me talk about, I don't only rally against the God of the Bible. That is the one that I talk about the most because I live in America and it's overwhelmingly Christian, especially here where I live in Oklahoma is overwhelmingly Christian. So that's what I grapple with more often than not. However, like, my position is that no God whatsoever is a good deal. And so, like, the God of the Bible is what I talk about a lot. Because any God that would control the idea of a God, as far as I understand it, is some creature, some mind, some living thing that is in control of this world. It made this universe on purpose and controls everything that goes on in the universe. That's usually what we talk about when we talk about a God. If that's not what you were talking about in particular, then we can talk about something else. But is that pretty much what you're getting at? Is like some sort of omnipotent, omniscient being?
No. It's because you have to let me, as a leader, explain to you, because I want you to know the truth. I don't want you to grow up not knowing the truth. And I can explain to you about. So would you just mind telling me
specifically what exactly do you mean when you talk about God? Like, just please be as succinct as possible and just tell me, like, what are the characteristics of the God that you believe in?
Oh, yeah, there you go. It's because it's about the system. It's about the creation. For example, like aliens and UFOs don't exist. You know why? Because I understand the design. I figured it out. I found out in a very, very cool way how the system works and how good God is. And just because, for example, you might be seeing, oh my God, a 5-year-old children having bone cancer, right? You might be thinking that's most of the people would think, the atheists like Ricky Gervais or Bill Maher, thinking, oh no, of course there's no God. What will be a God? God is not fair because look, there's children suffering. But this is the part, the key. This is the part that you are not understanding, that God doesn't hurt children. What's happening in the world, we are doing it by ourselves. But in this system, it's like, let me explain to you, it's like a game,
Well, I will let you explain, but I want to ask again because you didn't answer my question. Will you please just tell me, like, is the God you're talking about omnipotent? Is he omnipresent? Is he, able to see everything, control everything? Does anything happen that isn't according to your God's design?
That's where I'm going. I want
you to just tell me those things quickly so that I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. The God that created this design is outside the system, so you cannot see God. God is only our creators. They're just watching, and they're just seeing how we play this game. But guess what? In this game, as any other game, have you ever played Monopoly or any board game? Right? Have you ever played games like that? Well, exactly. Sure. As any other game, there are some rules, right? And what happens when you play by the rules? You're always gonna win, right? But this is the problem in the world. We still don't know the rules. And I found out the rules. This is the thing that I'm so excited about, because part of knowing the rules is going to heal cancer, is going to heal war. There's not going to be more violence. There's not going to be more pedophilia and stuff like that. You see, so this is like a game. But if you don't know the rules...
So your God... You're saying that this God made the universe, and this God has laid out the rules.
Maybe no. Maybe no. This is real. This is not my God. This is your God, but you still don't know it. And when you follow the rules, that's when you're gonna find this is the evidence. The evidence is not like, oh, look, I have a picture of an old guy with long beard, white beard, coming from the heavens. No, that's not how it works. The evidence is the experience. And when you follow the rules, it's only gonna take you 30 days. And then when you make it to those 30 days, you are gonna really feel everything and understand everything, my friend. You see, I can see your talent in you. But for example, let me give you an example. Jimmy, I was watching the program yesterday. man, you still don't know. Jimmy has serious mental issues. He probably had like a very bad trauma. This guy, from 8 words out of 10, is all F you, F this, F that. You probably remember me. I'm the guy that was texting and saying, hey, guys, can you imagine if they invite you in CNN?
First of all, I don't think that, throwing around some vulgarities and some bad language is a sign of mental trauma. And also, any kind of issue that Jimmy has, that's for him to talk about and for him to, vocalize. Getting online and saying, hey, this guy's a lot of mental issues. Kind of shitty.
Can you imagine if they invite you to CNN? Can you imagine to CNN? They wouldn't even let him talk because of his
I don't care about CNN. That's not the point. That's just, I hope you understand that saying this guy has a lot of mental issues because he uses curse words is a really shitty thing to say.
No, I'm not saying that he has mental issues because he's using cursing. No, you're getting me wrong. It's just his attitude. He's full of anger. I understand mental illness, and his mental illness is very obvious. No, but it's okay. Trust me. I know what you say because I've been watching it, and I know you're very smart. But at least you're not out of control as him. I'm just making an example. So let's go
really
back to
quick,
this.
Charles, before you continue to dig yourself deeper and insult my friends further, I'm just going to ask you really quickly. Like, you're talking about this God as somebody who created the whole universe, and you're saying that everything bad that happens in the universe is because we're not following the rules. Here's my question to you. Does your God know the rules that we're supposed to follow in order to get rid of things like cancer and pedophilia and all the other horrible things that you mentioned?
No.
Yes or no?
No. It's not my God.
That's a yes or no question.
God.
Does
this
God you're talking about know the
don't
rules?
rule it like that. Just because you don't rule it like that. Let me explain to you because I know the devil always wants to block the
for over 10 minutes, Charles. I would like to hear the answer.
But it takes time. You always ask for evidence, and let me have the opportunity to tell you. But if you're gonna tell me, put it like, oh no, it's a yes or no. Yeah, the God created everything, and there are some rules. But the rules are so obvious that we.
Does your God know the rules?
Oh,
Can your God communicate the rules clearly to us?
No, that's not how
then
it works.
Then he's useless.
What?
If your God made rules and said you have to follow the rules, otherwise there's going to be all these horrible things, but he won't tell us what the rules are, then he's useless. And furthermore, if your God made a system where there are special rules that get rid of things like cancer and pedophilia, he's an asshole. I would never say you have to do this or this,
you're not understanding.
That's horrible.
You're still not understanding, Forrest. You're still not understanding. Like in this world, like for example, it's not that I'm like, oh no, it's just I figure out the rules by myself. The creation is beautiful. It gives you opportunities. When you're born perfect and everything. But when it's for example, you heard. Let me give you an example. The 10 Commandments. There's one rule that says, "Do not kill." Duh. Of course. Why would that's the thing that I don't follow the Bible because, of course, if you're gonna kill somebody, do you really need to know that rule? Like it's obvious that we're not supposed to do that because it's wrong. You know what I mean? So when you know that, wait until you find out the rules. I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna find out about here. You're gonna find out because I'm working my way up because it's working. Okay. The people around me, But wait, the people around me getting to know the rules.
Let me know if you need me to mute him at all.
No, it's fine. I've got a mute button as well. I just want to ask Charles really quickly. Give me one rule. One rule. The most important rule, one, very succinctly, give me one of the rules.
Oh, yeah? No, because, I cannot talk this in a phone because it has to be a person, the person.
And there's no point in this call. Why are you calling
No, it's okay, but I'm just telling you that, you think that this God kills babies and that's why you don't believe in God, and I don't blame you. But wait until you find out the rules and you're going to
does kill babies or not. He created a world in which babies die in the first place.
Why people have cancer,
And I'm going to go ahead and mute you really quick there, Charles, because I need you to understand. I don't care if this God kills babies or not. Sure, that's the position that a lot of people take, but that's not what I'm here talking about. If this God made a world where children die from horrible, like right now we live in a world where over 24,000 children starve to death every day. These are people under the age of 5 years old, 1,000 an hour, starve to death every single day. It doesn't matter if he's doing it, if he's watching it and he has the power to stop it and he doesn't, there is no excuse. He's an ass. That's it. If I'm watching someone suffering and I'm not helping, that means that I'm culpable. Now, in a normal society with you or me having our own problems to deal with, it can be understandable that I got my own shit going on and I just can't spare the time right now. And it really sucks, but that's a moral gray area that we all live in. This God is supposed to be omnipotent and all present and all powerful and all perfect and all kind and all these other omnis. That means he doesn't have an excuse. If this God is worthy of worship, then he should be able to fix it. And because he doesn't, he is not worthy of worship. That is my position. You can dress it up any way you like. You can put any labels you want on it. Any God that would be in charge of a universe like this, rules or no rules, is a monster. And I want nothing to do with him. I'm now going to unmute you, and I'm going to give you one chance to respond to that succinctly, please.
This is the part that you're not understanding, that God is not the one doing that. It's us that we're doing it to ourselves. For example, if a children have cancer, it's because of their parents. They're doing something wrong, you know? That's the part that you're not letting me explain.
That's going to be the end of it, Charles. Thank you so much for calling in.
Don't hang up.
I already did.
Fuck! I heard he said I had mental issues while I was taking a shit, and I wanted to know what they were. No.
Saying that children having cancer is because their parents are doing something wrong is really fucked up. He already insulted you, saying that you have so many mental problems and here you are cursing because you're I'm not interested in.
I mean, he's not wrong. I got issues. That is true.
Oh,
I just wanted to.
Sure, but that's not for somebody else to say.
I just wanted to ask Dr. Charles what he would diagnose a person who was self-assured of a self-evident entity that he has tremendous confidences with which he could not provide a single lick of evidence for. Like, what kind of diagnosis he'd give a guy like that if he could imagine someone like that. But all right, that's a bummer. I was hoping for some real breakthrough therapy with Dr. Charles there.
Right. I wanted to go over the rules of cancer and how you don't have it because somebody else is mean. But here I'm not going to do that either. Oh, my gosh. So we have two really great callers that I think would be really interesting to get to. I'm going to start with Frederick from Denmark, who says he takes issues with the way that I talk about gender. I would love to hear what you have to say. Frederick, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. But I have to get early up in the mornings, and it's pretty late. But I think I really want to talk about this with you because it's so fucking interesting.
Well, I really appreciate you staying up late for me. I promise I won't take up too much of your time. What exactly did you want to talk about?
Yes, I take issue with the way you're talking about gender, not in the way that I think you're misrepresenting.
I know what you mean.
My words right now. Things, but
your English is better than my any other language, so you're doing great.
My German is better than my English, and my Danish, and my Swedish, and my French. So yes, I just very nervous right now. But
that's fine. That's fine.
It is the way that you are not distinguishing between gender roles and gender identity, because you're saying that gender is a social construct, and I will give you right. Gender roles is totally a social construct in the way that we are using it to describe how we are reacting in the society with each other. But gender identity is, you can almost call it a neurological construct in the way your brain are reacting to your physical biological sex, and in the way that is interacting with gender norms and this social existence. With but just saying that gender in itself is a social construct, you are in a way dismissing the complexity of gender identity and even going to give certain people that's misconception that you're canine, that it is something that is learned behavior more than in its natural behavior.
Okay. Yeah, I can totally see where you would draw that, and that's a very fair criticism. I think that the biggest thing, I think there's two things that I think are important here. Number one is, this sounds like a little bit of a cop-out, but it's very true, is that, I'm teaching on the internet, so I can't give too much nuance. And so, like, saying gender just as the word gender, I do conflate a lot of things there. I am talking about gender performance. I'm talking about gender identity. I'm talking about gender roles. I'm talking about everything that goes along with everything outside of biological sex, basically. I am lumping all those things together. And it's understandable. You could very easily rebuke, and say, like, there's a lot more details there, and there are. But the second thing that I think is important is that we can't boil down gender, nor can we predict gender by any one biological constraint. It is very much tied to a nurture type of thing. It is very much tied to our society. So while yes, there are neurological parts of it, and there are psychological parts of it, it's still, I don't think it would be appropriate to say that that gender identity and gender performance are something that's deterministic, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're arguing with.
You. Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you that we cannot boil it down to a single component, like being gay can't be drawn down to a single component. But yeah. I'm still saying that it is in many ways important to distinguish between it, and I very much appreciate how you are both taking gender performance, and how basically, if we lived in a society where there was no pressure to act a certain way, there will probably very rarely be things that would go out of the norms, because there wouldn't be any norms to get out of. And I understand why you don't want to call something and that I call gender and neurological construct, because there's many more things going down in it, and that I'm saying that it is both psychology and it is many things. I totally understand.
So there is one thing that I think is interesting. It's like there is a link there insofar as, like, studies that show, like, trans people's neural architecture aligns more with their gender identity than their biological sex. And so, like, those are things that, like, we can, draw a line to there for sure. However, those studies are, they're all over the place, and there's still a lot of debate on this, that, and the other with them. I have friends on both sides of an issue from reading the same studies. And so, like, it's tough, because the whole concept of sex and gender right now, especially coming from a biological perspective, is controversial. And there are really, really, really way better scientists than I'll ever be on both sides of the issue. And it's, what I'm trying to do when I talk about these things on programs like this, or in any sense, is, like, give a very succinct analysis that people could jump onto and, like, latch on, understand the basics of it, and hopefully kind of open the door for more stuff. I do think it would be really interesting to say, like, that lead people into understanding more, like, anthropological side of the more anthropological side of it, of, like, what gender performance is all about, and how gender plays out in different societies and different cultures that have more than two genders, and, like, understanding that whole business there. That would be the ideal thing to get to talk about. But unfortunately, when we talk about it from neurology, we end up having to make a lot of statements, like, trying to clarify things. Like I just said a second ago, that, trans people's brains align more with their biological sex, but that's not to say that there is such a thing as, like, a woman brain and a man brain, right? It's a little bit more nuanced than that. And so we're seeing, like, tiny little changes in certain areas that are really important, but it's not like it's a dimorphic situation. And that's way too much to explain on a call-in show. You know what I mean? So, like, that's why I boil it down the way that I do.
I once talked in almost 7 hours about different neurological constructions of autism and how it can be shown on and how the social ways are, because I have it myself and I am very well read in that certain area, almost to the degree where I would say that I certainly can talk as passionate about autism that you can talk about evolution. So
wow. We need more people like that.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a neuroscientist and he studies autism, and he can go on and on and on. And I'm just sitting there like just fascinated because I don't know that like, nearly as much.
Yes. Another way that you talk about how, you know, how gender roles have switched over the ages. There's a fantastic quote from a Scottish gentleman back in the 1870s who was criticized by a British nobleman who said that it was womanly of the Scotch to go in kilts, and he said, and he wrote back publicly that saying that publicly admitting that a single breeze between your legs is the only thing that you feel a man, you should certainly considering calling women for the stronger sex then.
Exactly. It's the same thing as we have today. You know, when we talk about gender roles here in America, is you know, there's a lot of pushback against people wearing fingernails. Boys painting their fingernails is a big thing, and boys wearing makeup is a big thing. And there was a huge debacle a couple of years ago because Lucky Charms breakfast cereal put unicorn-shaped marshmallows in the breakfast cereal, and everyone was freaking out that this was going to turn kids gay. And like my position has always been, if getting some paint on your fingers or eating a marshmallow is enough to make you gay, I think you're already gay. I think you're just waiting for that little trigger right there. Like that's see you at Pride. I'm sorry.
I totally agree. Personally, I wear makeup because I have a pretty bad scar, and one guy said that he couldn't wear makeup because it was only something girls did, and he had pretty bad acne. So I very much laughed him in his face, and I a little bit agreeing with it because it was a dick move. But yeah,
right. I totally understand. Well, Charles, or Frederick, I appreciate you calling in. And like I said, you know, it's a totally fair criticism to say that we should be breaking down these issues more and more. There are a lot of people who are way more qualified than me that I would trust to do that. As for me, like, I hope you can understand that, you know, when I'm talking in a public forum like this, I try to keep things pretty light. And that's not to say that I have to talk down to these people, you know what I mean? Anything like that. It's just that that's part of being a science communicator, is when I talk about any topic, you know, I have to make it palatable. But I appreciate you calling in and talking about this, because these are things that I think people should look into more. Because a lot of people are surprised when they learn, especially, I remember when I was, you know, studying, when I was starting out in anthropology and learning about gender performance, that blew my freaking mind. The idea that this is something that you do rather than something that you are. And you're right, separating gender identity from cultural gender is a really important thing to do. So I hope more people look into that and you know, explore that a little bit more. And I will always be here to answer whatever questions I can about it.
Yes. Okay. Should we then end this on a good dad joke?
A good dad joke? Absolutely. This is real. Honestly, I got my wife a globe for Christmas. It meant the world to her.
How does a non-binary samurai kill people? They/them.
That's fantastic. Frederick, you're awesome. Thank you so much for exchanging dad jokes with me. You're a rock star. Have an awesome rest of your day and get some sleep before you got to go to work, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. What an awesome dude. Oh, I love that so much. We're going to move on to the next things. We've got, oh goodness, Tyler. pronouns he, him, calling in from the West Coast, says that we shouldn't talk about trans stuff the way that we still that we shouldn't talk about religion. Tyler, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
Hi, how's it going? Anyway,
it's going really well,
my
man.
main concern. Sorry, my main concern with the whole way that the trans stuff is taught in school is very similar to the way I grew up in the Mormon church with religion. And my one concern is like social pressure and things like that. So like, when I used to bear my testimony, I used to stare everybody in the fucking face and tell them, or sorry, I don't mean this way, but I used to stare everybody in the face. And I used to tell them like, yeah, I do believe all this stuff, but that's just, I wouldn't tell them that same thing. I mean, if there was somebody that was not involved in the Mormon church, I wouldn't tell them that same thing. You know what I mean? And so my main concern with the whole trans stuff, because I feel like the trans, the reliability of like people identifying as trans, I feel like that is the most effective way. It's like self-reference. Like how more reliable could you get than somebody coming in and being like, hey, I think I feel a certain way. That's to me, that's good. But the problem that the more prevalent that you start talking about these kind of things and you start putting it in front of kids, like that type of information, it'd be like if you were like, hey, like if you started teaching religion in school, like, and you asked how many people in school, you're like, hey, everybody raise your hand. How many of you like believe in God? It'd probably be a higher like percentage of people raising their hands than if you didn't teach that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I guess my main concern is the reliability of the process.
I feel like I understand where you're coming from. You're concerned that if we put this out there too often and from a position of authority, more children might think that they're trans than are actually trans, and they might end up being more confused than before. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Well, and I would say more people, especially if you weren't okay, like if you were like, well, I just think that it's like there's only two genders. If you were that type of person and you were pushed out of the main like friends group because of that, like the school's like, oh, that's wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you were put in that position, then you're gonna have even more people saying like, oh yeah, like oh yeah, there's 72 genders, or they're just gonna go along with whatever anybody's saying.
So
you know what I mean? I don't know. Am I completely talking out my ass? Or?
No, I hear where you're coming from. I think I understand, and I think the biggest issue with this is that I think the biggest problem with what you're saying is that you're coming at it from a position of normalcy. You're looking at the society we have now, and you're comparing something that is harmful, like religion, and saying, if we put this in this way, then it would do this horrible thing, and everybody who didn't agree with it would be outcast, and that's totally reasonable when you're talking about something that actually is a problem, and it actually is a form of indoctrination. However, with this, think back over the past forever in public education in America, and it has been doing exactly what you're talking about with heteronormativity. We've been teaching every single kid there are two genders, and there's boys and boys like girls, and everybody else is wrong. And if anybody came along and said, actually, gender is a social construct and a spectrum, here it is, Frederick, I'm saying it the way you didn't like it again. But even if, when people come along and say it the way that it actually is, they were outcast, accused of wrong thing. They were ostracized from their peer groups. For a long time, even when I was a kid, being gay was a pejorative word for anything that you didn't like. Oh, this pencil broke, it's so gay. That was the standard curriculum for public school for a long time. And what we're seeing now is not overexposure, but responsible visibility. We're allowing these people to be seen, and we're telling kids, hey, these people exist. You might be one of them. Who knows? That's for you to figure out. And I think that's actually a more responsible way of doing things, rather than saying, this is how it is. There's only two genders and boys like girls and all this stuff. And if you figure out that you're different, that's, we'll talk about that later. And have those kids now be worried when they find this out about themselves. They think that they're wrong. They think they're mistaken. They think that they're ostracizing themselves, rather than learning from a young age, oh shit, this is a possibility. I should explore it. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not this way, but I should at least be allowed to ask those questions. And if somebody comes along and says they're only two genders,
the only thing that Sorry,
well,
the
I would
only
just say
thing that I
to
think
your
could
last
balance
point,
that
if
out.
anybody comes along and does say there's only two genders and all these things today, you're right. They would be accused of wrongthink a little bit because that is incorrect. But also that should be led with compassion. That should be, that would be a teachable moment. If I've had people in classes come up to me and tell me scientifically inaccurate things all the time, that's part of being an educator. But I never ostracize them or shame them or anything. We educate. We don't shame. That's the whole thing is about.
Yeah, I think the only I guess I'm worried about trading one tyrant for another, I guess, is what I'm saying, because I felt like growing up, I felt like with religion, I felt like I was kind of socially caused to lie,
Yeah.
to lie to myself in order to say oh yeah, I agree with that kind of stuff. But the only difference I would say now with the whole as far as the gays, or they would used to only teach straight and hey, that's the only way and stuff, is that now there's now there's things that you can medical treatments you can sign up for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not just you grow up in school and everyone's like, hey, gay is wrong, and then you turn out you're 3 and you're gay. It's that's you know what I'm saying? To me, like I was saying, I think the process of identifying as trans is reliable, 100% reliable, that you're going to help people. But the problem is, I feel like with the social pressures, the only danger is that you're going to have people who maybe get pressured into it and regret it later. And that, do you understand what I'm saying? So, I mean,
the only difference that I would see here is, number one, you mentioned medical treatment. I'm assuming you're talking about trans affirming care.
Anytime you would take hormones or anything, when you go to a doctor, you're like, hey, I need a prescription for this or an injection for this. I'm saying when you sign up for a medical treatment, I'm not talking about affirming care where you go home and everybody talk to your family. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about that
using correct pronouns or things like that. No, I understand that, and that is what I mean about trans affirming medical care. Those types of things aren't things that are prescribed or given out willy-nilly. Those are things that take months, if not years, of consistent counseling and working with the medical professionals in order to get to the point where you can start talking about those things. It's not like something like a piercing where a kid could just, oh shit, I guess I better do this. Everybody's on T today. I guess I better go do that. And then they regret it down the line. That's not a possibility with that sort of thing. So I think that's a bit of a boogeyman.
If my son doesn't feel more like a man, I can't just shoot him up with testosterone, right?
Right. That's not a thing that's possible. And it's also important to point out the fact that things like hormone therapy, those are not only reserved for trans people. Lots and lots of cis people, in fact, more than likely more cis people than trans people, rely on hormone replacement therapy all the time. And it's the exact same process. It takes a long time of talking to a doctor very seriously about what's going on with you and your body and figuring out how to correct it using these amazing chemicals that we understand. So it's not like it's something that you can just pop down to the corner store and pick up and shoot into your arm. So that's very much a boogeyman that doesn't exist that you're worried about there. And as far as regretting transitioning, that's... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I feel like as far as religion goes, your channel is a very good advocate for people who are trying to get off of religion. But what I feel like is with the whole transing thing and the LGBT thing, I don't think that there's an advocacy group. It seems like the advocacy group is the conservatives who are for people who may have regretted their transitions or who feel like maybe they wish there was someone that would have been telling them the opposite kind of thing. I don't doubt anybody's convictions. If you know what I'm saying? I don't doubt anybody's convictions. I feel like if you become trans and then you detransition, I feel like those people feel like they don't have an advocacy group.
So the amount of people that do detransition, because there's always one or two that get then made a poster child for this type of thing, which I'm not accusing you of this, but very often that type of thing then leads to hate speech and they become this big blown up thing because of it. what you fail to understand about that, or what they don't tell you about those things, is that it is a statistically tiny percentage of trans people that end up detransitioning. More often than not, it's social detransitioning, not medical detransitioning. And also very often is because of pressure from their family, their social groups being non-supportive and telling them that they're mentally ill and all these things. And so they are trying to cram themselves back into a box that they don't want to be in. So their detransition is actually a harmful thing.
Yeah, the exact same thing that the parents could do to them that could harm them. That's what I'm worried about, someone who's not trans going to school and getting the exact same opposite. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but you understand,
you get someone going to school who's not trans, and you hear them saying that could be harmful to them. But someone who is actually trans, if they don't have a support group, well, then they're going to detransition. What I'm saying, that's what I'm worried about. You see how like it kind of overlaps? I mean,
I understand where you're coming from entirely. But what I'm trying to say, or at least I think I do, what I'm trying to get across is that, you know, this idea, even if the Fox News nightmare were true, and there were teachers in class telling everybody, all right, you know, draw your gender out of a hat today and you're trans now and all these things, even if it was that way where we were telling kids that they were trans and trying to push that on them, even if that were the case, going then and talking to a medical professional who actually understands these things, talking to a psychologist, talking to to a psychiatrist, or to an endocrinologist, or to any kind of doctor, they would then be the one taking over their care, and they would do it appropriately. Every single major medical association, period, supports trans-affirming medical care as a way of greatly improving the mental and physical health and well-being of transgendered individuals. So every single major medical association understands this and knows how to do it appropriately and has the evidence to back up what they're doing. So even if there was social pressure in schools, the second that kid went to a doctor and said, this is how I feel and this is why I feel it, that doctor would be able to smell the bullshit and say, okay, well, here's what's actually going on. And that wouldn't be, at that point, that wouldn't be like, you know, a crisis medical center type of situation where they're trying to pull people over to a religious side. That would then be responsible. But again, can't stress this enough, that's not happening. There is no social pressure to become transgender, any more than there's social pressure to become anything else.
There's social pressure to agree with it, I think.
That for sure, that is increasing, but that's because that's the right thing to do. The same way that there's social pressure to allow black people to use the same water fountain.
No, I know. Yeah. Well, that's, I think it almost crosses over with religion more because it's something that, I think in some situations, it's something that there is no objective way to identify it. But I think when a lot of people say there's two genders, I think they're talking about like the scientific process as far as like how you identify a mammal, and not necessarily talking about the social aspect of what is trans.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that when we talk about things like sex and gender and whatnot, you know, just talking about gender here in the U.S., like in our culture here, right, is that, you know, these things are strongly bimodal. There are two major groups, but there's also this fuzzy gradient, this continuum between them. And like, that's all that we're trying to address right now. And again, I'm only talking, as far as gender is concerned, I'm only talking about this culture because there are millions of other cultures out there. Many of other cultures that have three major groups, that have, you know, 3 genders, 4 genders, whatever. But just talking about ours, like, no matter how you slice it, there's this fuzzy gray area. And even if that's a tiny, tiny fraction of like 1%, that's still millions of people. And so all we're trying to do is all we're trying to do is let people know that those people exist and that they're okay and that they're valid, and they're not crazy. It's the same thing as back in the day, you know, being homosexual used to be classified as a mental disorder. And then we learned that it's not. We learned that there's actually a tremendous amount of normal biological variation, not only within our species, but all throughout the animal kingdom. And overnight, you know, millions of people were cured of a mental disorder. All these people were all of a sudden okay because we rewrote the DSM and said, all right, fuck, man, I guess this is a normal thing that can happen. And we're just doing the exact same thing with being trans. this is no longer considered to be a disorder. We're finding that there actually is normal variation here, and these people aren't sick, and they aren't broken, and they aren't crazy, and in fact, they're quite average, all things considered. And so we're just allowing people to understand these people. And yeah, we're probably pushing it a little bit hard right now because we're having to overcome this barrier, which is the last several hundred years of these people being shamed and criticized and ridiculed and mocked and oftentimes murdered. So we're having to overcome that.
Yeah.
And if you think we're overcorrecting, maybe, who knows? I don't think so, but I would rather overcorrect a little bit than let that continue to be the way that it was. Does that make sense?
I agree. I guess for my final thing, what you kind of helped me realize what I'm saying is we need to push social acceptance without pushing people out, kind of shit, I guess.
Absolutely. That should always be the case. That should always be the case.
I
if anybody is out here, if there's an adult out here saying that, pick your favorite thing, that you're if you have XY chromosomes, that means you're a boy and you do boy things, blah blah blah. If there's an adult saying that, you can be a little bit more grumpy with them, I suppose, especially at a certain point of exposure now in today's media. But like, if a kid's saying these types of things, like, no third grader, no sixth grader is going to come to you with a completely fresh idea that they just built out of hate and all these things. They don't understand, and it's for you to teach them. So that's the thing. We always, we explain, we don't shame. That's always how it should be. And if any teacher is out there, if a kid comes up to them with transphobic rhetoric, with homophobic rhetoric, whatever, the first question in that teacher's mind should be like, okay, where did you hear this? You know what I mean? Who taught you that? What grown up at home said that you heard? And then the second thing is, how can I get through to this kid and make him feel welcome in our conversation, so that they abandon that on their own rather than trying to beat it out of their head? You know what I mean? The exact same way that we would with any other kind of science, history, math, and anything else in the world. If a kid came up to me and said in a history class, oh, the Nazis weren't that bad, my first question is, what creep are you living with that said some shit? What Nazi memorabilia do you have around the house that you have to defend this? Exactly. And then the second thing is, okay, let's talk about that. If I just say, fuck you, that kid's going to be pushed away and they're going to dig into that belief. But if I say, all right, so let's talk about that. Why do you think that? Do you understand all the facts here? Do you really understand the gravity of what you're talking about? Let's break this down a little bit. And it's the same thing with this. Okay, so do you understand what this actual definition of these terms are? Do you understand what the variation is? Do you understand why calling these things binary really doesn't make any sense? Do you understand what that would be the conversation so that kid can like grow rather than feeling, like you said, feeling cast out or whatever like that. That should always be the way that it is.
See, me, if a person says that they believe in God, I believe they believe in God. If someone says they're trans, I believe that they believe they're trans. But I just I mean, with the stuff that there's no way to know. I mean, and atheism taught me this a lot. It's like, if there's no objective way to tell something, I mean, I'll take someone's word for it, and I ain't gonna dog on them or nothing, But I just, if there's no way to
it's also a matter of,
you understand what I'm saying?
Don't ignore the dog whistle. I'm like chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch a little bit, just that, like, when you conflate these things together, like, I understand the line you're trying to draw between religion and being trans. I understand that you're making a comparison here, but it's really important to also point out that, like, somebody doesn't just believe that they're trans any more than they believe that they're gay. You know what I mean? Or they believe they're straight.
Or that believes that they believe in God or no too. I mean,
right.
That's
so
like,
there's
how far does it cross over from your personal like situation or your personal like how like your sense of being? How far does that cross over into like what someone actually believes and what you can actually identify?
I'm sorry.
And like
Forrest,
you said
earlier,
it's hard to cross.
Can I please? This whole call's been annoying me.
Give me one more second, Jim.
Okay.
Just give me one more second because I'm trying. I think we're on the same page. And if I don't get this through, then Jimmy, absolutely, you can take over. But just one more thing, like, because I hope you understand, Tyler. I'm trying to be, I don't think you're coming from a bad place. Some of the language that you're using here, and what Jimmy's about to jump in on is, some of the language you're using is problematic, and I don't think you're trying to be a dick. So I'm trying to like hear you out. the biggest problem when you throw around words like believe and when you throw out these things like this, do you believe that you're straight and cisgendered? Like you're a straight man. I
do, but there's
right?
no way that anybody could call me a liar. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
I do believe that, but there's no one that can call me a liar.
How would you feel about it if I were to use the same language for you then? Just flip this whole thing on its head. If I were to talk about teaching kids about being straight, and then if they don't think they're straight, they're ostracized. I know they believe that they're straight, and I can't really prove that wrong, so I guess just I'll be nice for their sake. Like, do you see how it's really condescending and it doesn't really work?
What if somebody did something that was close to being like gay, but then they're like, oh no, I'm not that. Do you believe them, or do you say they're closeted? That you know what I'm saying?
I would say that sexuality is also kind of this may sound like a cop-out, but sexuality is also kind of weird, and there's a difference between sexual orientation, erotic orientation, and romantic orientation, so I would understand that what they're doing might not be representative of their actual sexuality, but that's a whole other business. The whole point is, when you throw around words like believe, what you're doing, maybe, probably, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt.
I'm trying not to judge them.
Right. Probably inadvertently and unwittingly, what you're doing is you're playing into some really shitty rhetoric that kind of builds up this idea that being trans is something that can be cured, or you can be brainwashed into, or that you can be straightened out later, and that's nonsense.
I think it's a human phenomenon that we don't understand. That's what I think.
It is a part of someone's identity.
I think it's a human phenomenon that we just don't understand. We're starting to understand. We don't quite understand. That's what I think.
What I hope you get is that this is a part of who someone is. This isn't something that they, turn into at some point. This is something you discover for sure. And I've said several times that I don't think anybody, especially here in America, takes the time to really explore their gender, their sexuality, their identity enough, because we live in a bizarrely heteronormative world that pushes one idea upon people. So very few people get the opportunity to explore these things and ask themselves really hard questions and be allowed to be curious and question. That's what I think everybody should be able to do that. But what you would be doing in those instances is discovering things about yourself, not creating things about yourself. And that's a really important distinction to make.
No, I agree with you. I completely agree with you.
Cool. Jimmy, really quickly, Jimmy, did I miss anything there that you were talking about that you wanted to hit on?
It's almost like it'd probably be of higher value to just wrap this up and go to the next call, because I have my issues, and it was when he did his I believe that they believe that they're trans. Which is, for the record, is in almost every civil rights category, the I believe that they believe is a bigot dog whistle. And so, Tyler, whether you know that or not, whether you know that or not, I'm sitting here and I'm hearing you say things like, well, there should be the other side of the issue taught too, which you're not saying the other side of the issue is you might just be cis and maybe you're confused. The other side of the issue is trans people don't exist. They're just perverts and pedophiles. That's the side that Fox News is getting rejected in schools and is mad that they're not allowed to. Right. I'm just going along with the things you're advocating for. And you're sitting here with I believe that they believe, but there's no objective test for depression. And yet we know that robust resources must exist for people who have depression. There's no objective test for anxiety. There's no objective test for autism. There's no objective test for being gay. And we know resources need to exist for everybody who these things are part of them and their identity. And I don't know, I just was fucking really, every time you compare it to believing in Mormonism, it makes my blood fucking boil, because you're talking about a scientifically confirmed thing versus ideology.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying I don't think Tyler.
It's scientifically confirmed to the point where there is very much value in believing what somebody says when they say it. Yes.
For sure.
I'm saying it's scientifically confirmed that transgender identities are valid. I'm not saying there's an objective test for the individual, but that gender and sex neither exist in actual binaries, and it actually wouldn't make much sense for this to not happen within the brain, and it wouldn't make much sense to have binary gender, and all of this is stuff that you can get out of And so there's just a lot of there's a lot of soft things that you say that it makes it seem like you want to say I just don't want to bother any individual living in their truth, but I sure am worried about the poor cis. I do wonder whether or not we should deny life-saving education and care to an overwhelming more than 95% of trans people who need it to save their lives for that tiny little percentage of cis people that might be confused and have regrets. That's
no. I just think by nature of the scientific process, the only thing that can conflict with someone self-identifying something is social pressure and prior experiences. That's the only thing that can tip the scale. Because the most reliable trans person is a person who's never heard of trans, and they go to a doctor and they're like, hey, do you know what? I just don't feel right. I feel like this. That's the most reliable person.
Yeah.
And yet the statistics are still what they are, and you're making all of these appeals to the science and number,
it
is still,
it's still an extreme 100%.
It's an extreme minority of people who regret it, and you don't deny care to everybody for the extreme minority of mistakes.
I'm sure there's a minority of cancer survivors who regret having a mastectomy, but that's still the best option when that doctor recommends it. You know what I mean? That's the thing is whenever you talk about anything at all, there will certainly be some stories of people regretting things. There will certainly be some weirdness, some people who didn't agree, that didn't do like this, that did it wrong, that did that. That will always be the case.
Or their specific genetic makeup didn't agree with it, kind of shit. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that there's always going to be fuzzy gray areas on anything at all. Period. Forever. Any moral or scientific issue ever, there's going to be that one or two, oh, well, this also happened. The thing is, when we're talking about social justice, when we're talking about advocacy for people, when we're talking about making sure people have access to the resources that they need, what we need to be focusing on is the data, and we need to be focusing on what actually is helping people, and saying, yeah, all right, this one guy didn't like it, so that means nobody gets it. That would be insane. So I said a minute ago.
Do you believe that somebody can transition? Do you believe that's a real thing? Someone can detransition?
Of course.
After they transition? Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I guess
there was a lady that testified in front of Congress who was testifying pro-trans, and that was one of the questions she was asked. And she was like, no, there's never been anyone who's
that doesn't matter. Before you let him go, I'd love to hear the answer to the question, what's one thing that you think is being taught in schools to children, a specific example of what's being taught that you think it's wrong that it's being taught regarding trans issues?
Like I said, you're going to help 100% of people. What I'm worried about is social pressure. So if you castigate the people who don't agree with it, and then you get them to go along, or if it's something that like a fad in school, that's why I'm just worried about social pressure. That's it.
But
the same shit that happened to me in the Mormon religion.
But here's the thing: can you pick any other human rights issue where that level of social pressure wouldn't be appropriate?
I don't know, because it's not. To me, I think it's based on scientific value, and I'm saying if you want the value of the outcome, you have to follow how the reliability is processed. That's what I'm saying.
When we started, so we talked a minute ago about homosexuality, and we used to, ostracize homosexuals, and we used to believe they were mentally ill. When that ended, we then had a great tolerance and acceptance movement, and for a long time, it was a struggle, and you could still call somebody the F slur, and you could still, use gay as a pejorative, like we talked about a minute ago. Do you think that the social pressures existing in schools to not hate gay people and to accept gay people and understand that you might be gay and you're going to have to discover that about yourself, do you think that that is inappropriate the same way that you think that the social pressures about accepting trans people are inappropriate?
I think that the danger, to me, what you're saying, I'm like, okay, well, actually back then with the gays, it would probably be more like the people that were saying it was wrong it was wrong to be gay would be the same people as now the majority of people are saying it's okay to be trans. What I'm saying is it would be the exact opposite.
Right. That's not what I asked. What I asked is that you're worried about social pressure about trans issues in schools. Are you equally concerned about social pressures to accept homosexuals? Are you equally concerned about social pressures about anti-racism? Are you equally concerned about social pressures?
I think that in the same way that someone could be like socially around and be like, oh yeah, screw that race and screw that thing. I think the same thing could happen to like, hey, anybody that doesn't agree with it being okay with trans and all this stuff, hey, we're gonna like push you to the side. You're not cool anymore. You're not with us. I'm saying that I think there is a danger in that. I think the same way.
Wouldn't that be a good thing?
He's literally advocating for no social consequences for bigotry.
I'm not trying to get at. Is that, well, Tyler, don't you understand that's exactly what it is that if a kid in school said, I don't like black people, and they're all, and start throwing out a whole bunch of horrible racist pejoratives and slurs, that child would be ostracized. They would be castigated by their peers because of what they're doing. That's social pressure leading to change.
And even people that didn't agree, with being racist, they would like, through social pressure, they would be like, I agree with that. So they would be mixed in with the racist, just from social pressure.
Don't you think it's a good thing for there to be social consequences for bigotry?
I do. I don't think it's bad to shame people.
Then what's the difference?
I think that
if a kid starts throwing around the N-word,
you have to be careful about pushing an agenda that's going to help society, and make sure that you don't. I guess just like I don't know. I guess I just wish everybody could be friends, but I guess I don't know. It's a shitty world. So.
I just don't understand your complaint is the whole thing. Is that like you said that there should be social consequences for bigotry, and here you are saying I'm worried that there might be social consequences for bigotry.
Because when back in the day, if someone was gay, they wouldn't go to a doctor, and like part of them being gay wouldn't be going to a doctor getting prescribed drugs.
Yes, it would have been.
Yes, you're wrong.
So like when you have a
wrong.
social thing and you're like, oh hey, we're just going to be accepting of everybody. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and then you have like a government funded, like was the government funding people being anti-gay?
Yes. And getting chemically castrated.
Tyler, being gay used to be illegal in this country. You would go to jail if you were accused of homosexuality, and you would be forcibly chemically castrated. Women used to be able, there was a law in the United States for a long time that women had to wear certain number of feminine clothes. Otherwise, they would be arrested. Women could be arrested for wearing pants. Men could be arrested for talking with other men for too long under suspicion of being homosexual. There was government funding for these things, yes, for enforcing gender norms and heterosexuality. That was absolutely the case. Cross-dressing used to be illegal. You would go to jail. These were gender norms and sexual norms that were enforced by the government. That the same way that segregation in schools and Jim Crow laws were enforced by the government.
And so now trans stuff is being enforced in the government. That's what I'm saying. So now trans stuff is being enforced in the government, just like Jim Crow and
who's
anti-gay
enforcing
stuff was.
trans things? Who's enforcing trans things?
When you send your kids to school, don't they have to say people's pronouns, like whatever pronouns they have? On any day,
they don't.
No?
They're allowed to say whatever they want, but they're going to face social consequences if they say something shitty. It's the exact same thing. Again.
It's the same thing as Jim Crow. Then that's what I'm saying. You guys are holding this thing up, and really like your bad examples are. Hey, remember how government controlled being gay? Remember how government controlled Jim Crow? And now remember how the government's enforcing like LGBT stuff.
Tyler, I'm
just glad the government isn't enforcing LGBT anything. It's unrelated. That's completely non-comparable to Jim Crow.
I'm just glad you're finally taking the mask off and showing your true fucking face. You goddamn bigot.
No, does the government not? Maybe I'm just anti-government. Maybe that's it. But I'm just saying, is the government not paying for the schools?
Of course, taxpayer dollars pay for the schools, yes, and the schools should be welcoming and accepting and safe places for all children. You want it that way, right?
Yes, I do agree.
So if we all voted for it to be something different, then we, with our tax dollars, would make it something different. But it just so happens that we have made it the way that it is on purpose because that's the best way for it to be. So again, If a kid starts throwing around racial slurs in school, they would be penalized and ostracized. That's not government enforcement of anti-racism. That's just society moving in the right direction. Same way, if somebody doesn't honor somebody's pronouns, they're not going to be thrown in the freaking prison for it, but they're going to suffer social consequences because society is moving in the right direction. How are those two not the same thing?
So, but what I'm saying is, so if they disagree with it and they just go along to get along, then they'll be fine, right?
I guess it's the same way that any bigot could just go along to get along and be fine, sure. But the point is to try to cure bigotry, not to just allow it.
I just wish Tyler would address some of the points you were making. Like, for example, the thing you just made about racial bigotry. I wonder, Tyler, if a kid decides to start calling a black kid the N-word, should there be no consequences? Because that would be the government. I don't think
black people should be able to say the N-word. I don't think black people should be able to say the N-word.
Wait,
because
so
as a society, we don't allow that.
That's not the question.
No, I think Tyler, that kid should get in trouble just as much as if anybody else says it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so there should be social consequences for outright bigotry in school, but for using the N-word.
Yeah, but if a black person says the N-word, is it a bigotry? That's what I'm wondering.
You're misdirecting. That's not your decision.
I'm asking you, is it bigoted for a black person to say the N-word?
No, but
that's what I'm saying. So we don't really hold that value as a society. That's what I'm saying.
Oh my God, this guy. I love that it's...
No, we just don't. I'm just saying, if we're not going to do something, if we're all going to say the same words and we're all going to set the same standards, but we're just setting it for certain people, that's what I'm saying. It's just the same fucked up shit that was going on with the gays and... I don't know.
Tyler, do you want to be able to say the N-word?
No, I don't. I don't think anybody should be saying it because it's fucking offensive. It causes problems. It makes people act shitty.
Right. Then what's your issue if another community who has been historically oppressed by that word reclaims it and uses it for their own purposes?
But this is successfully getting off of the topic.
I just don't think we should be setting rules based on who is who. That's what I'm saying. Okay, obviously, obviously, if black people want to say the N-word, I really don't really care. But what I'm saying is...
It's up to you, man. You decide what you want to do with this. This guy's so dishonest. This guy's so dishonest.
We're moving from point to point, and you've yet to answer the main question. So I'm going to try it one more time. Is like we've said over and over that there should be social consequences for racial bigotry. And I'm hoping you'd say there should be social consequences for gendered bigotry as well. If someone was, very much misogynistic. And you've said you agree, and I understand that. I'm not trying to rehash that. I'm saying for clarity, you've agreed to those things. If someone is racist, if someone is misogynistic, if someone whatever, they should suffer social consequences. What I'm trying to drive at here is, why do you have such a problem when we apply the exact same standard to LGBT people?
Because when I think of like a man and a woman, I'm not basing it off of social constructs. I'm basing it off of what you would identify a mammal as.
You are basing it on
anybody. To me, I think that's it's a social contract. What I'm saying is verified by objectiveness. What I'm saying is I don't think that if people want to say, hey, man or woman, if they want to say that, I don't think it's bigoted. I don't think they're basing it off the same thing that the trans people are basing it off of, is what I'm saying.
When you talk to me, you're talking to me right now. Am I a man or a woman?
I'd like to ask you just to make sure. I think you're a man.
I'm asking you. How do you know?
Yes, I think you're a man.
How do you know?
I've looked at you before. I've seen your face on the screen.
Okay, so no women can look like this.
No, I think they can. But I also think that
what does that
artificial intelligences that can tell a difference between a man and woman can tell the difference whether you're dressed up or not.
Yeah, we're not talking about AI. We're talking about you. You said that you said that you don't use gender as a social construct. You base it on biological reality. What biological reality of me have you observed to determine that I'm a man?
Well, there's primary observation and secondary observation. And I'm going off a secondary observation.
Which is what?
Your facial structure, the way you talk.
Okay. I have met women with deep voices. I have met women with better beards than I have.
Well,
what does that
I've
mean?
seen women that I say they look like men.
Okay, great. So you agree there's variation here, and that doesn't make somebody less of a woman
But I
or
know
more
they're
of
a
a
woman,
man,
but
right?
I say they look like a man.
But how do you know they're a woman, Tyler?
Well, I'd have to go and ask them, but that's what I'm saying. I don't really care. Like what I'm more concerned on is
and the whole thing
here.
Yeah,
because it would be pretty offensive if you walked up to me and you were like, "Hey, Tyler, I'm actually a woman," and if I was like, if this conversation went exactly backwards, I'm like, I don't really think so, and you're like, "You're a bigot, bye." Like you know what I'm saying? You could say whatever you want. You are.
Why would that be offensive? What if I actually was a woman and I looked and sounded and acted exactly like this?
It wouldn't matter.
You've been on the call for almost 40 minutes acting like it matters. Why would it be?
Well, it would matter. It would matter if you wanted me to call you that. That's what would matter. It would matter if you wanted me to call you that. Like that's what I'm saying. If that was your hang up thing where you're like, "Hey, I'm a woman. Do you think I'm a woman?" And I was like, "No, I don't." Like is that what you're trying to say? Because to me, I'm just like, people could say whatever they wanted. I mean, of course, you look like a man. Yeah, I've heard you talk. I don't know. What bothers me is when people are like, "Hey," like you're saying, "Well, why does it matter?" Well, why does it matter if I call you what you're asking me to call you? That's what I'm saying. It just seems really self-serving, is all.
Tyler, you are a beautiful lady, and I will refer to you as she, her pronouns from now on. And if that bothers you even in the slightest little bit, then maybe you can start to understand why gender identity is important and why calling somebody what they're not kind of sucks and makes you an asshole.
It doesn't, because I would know you were doing it just because it wasn't true.
Yeah, sure. Maybe in my particular case, sure. But if you lived in a world where everybody called you the wrong pronouns and everybody told you were something you weren't, and everybody acted like you were crazy for saying saying who you are, and everybody called you disgusting, and everybody worried about you indoctrinating their children, and everybody talked about how there's social consequences for treating you badly, and that's a big problem, maybe then you would see why what you're saying is such a major issue. But we've got to move on to the next call. We've been on this call for 40 minutes trying to get this across.
Thanks for putting up with me, man. Thanks for putting up with me. Bye.
Yeah, take care, man. It hits me the exact same way as when people say that there's too many gay people and minorities on TV. You just can't find a white person on TV anymore. There's no straight white men on TV. It's like, even if that were true, the reason why that's a problem for you is why it's a problem that hasn't been the case for so long.
I mean, he objectively demonstrated himself to be a fuckface McGee, and yet would be offended if I called him that instead of Tyler. This is what identity. And yet he's objectively shown it. I do want to explain, and I do want to say, because I know it may have come off as rude to some people, Forrest is one of the most polite, kind people I know, and I love him to death. I have this sort of zoom out ability to see what comments are going to be like before they come. And the only reason I interrupted is I was worried that Forrest's politeness was going to be mistaken for indulgence of dog whistles. Because there was just a few in a row, and I was like, this guy's mask is slipping and it needs to come off. And so that's why I tried to chime in minimally, but also show we don't fuck with that shit here.
I appreciate you doing so, because I do that a lot where I try to I'm trying to let them explain themselves thoroughly so I can steel man their position and not cut them off. I want them to get it all out so that I can say, "Oh yeah, here's what we're doing." And I always try to teach politely as long as they're polite with me too. But I appreciate you pointing that out, because that was exactly where I was going next. And it was nice to have both of us on it. You know what I mean?
I couldn't anymore with the guy also. It's funny because I'm there's been 2 calls now where it's all right, so a guy calls in who is ex-Mormon and trying to talk shit about trans issues. And I'm like, I'm ex-Mormon and obviously a trans ally. And then another guy who calls in straight up just talking shit about me specifically. Why won't these fuckers call when I'm hosting? What the fuck? These are the calls for me. You're wasting the talents of an expert evolutionary biologist when you really just want to have a cunty conversation about religion and social issues. The douchebag stuff I'm better at. Give that to me. And don't waste this expert's time. This guy's a goddamn genius.
I am none of the things you've called me today. I went to college for way too long.
You're as smart as I think you are, but that's only kind of a compliment because I've also helped you set up tech stuff before.
You know how dumb I am.
Only in that region. But you are brilliant. It's true.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. It's already 7:26. Do we have time for one more, do you think?
Do whatever you want, man. Take them all. You want them all? Take them all.
Well, I want to do at least one more because I don't know about, there's a couple of them here.
If everybody keeps sending super chats, Forrest will keep taking calls. We got to pay bills.
I'll do one more call and then I'll do super chats because I want to get to the super chats real bad because I saw a few of them that sounded really fun.
Okay.
So I'll do one more call at least.
There's not a ton of them overall, as I'm saying. So if you were succinct as you were encouraging the one guy, you could probably get a couple, but it's up to you. Totally up to you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to do two. I'm going to do one more for sure. I'm going to start with Alex in California. Pronouns are he, him. Wants to talk about anarchism and anthropology. That sounds 10 million% up my alley. Alex, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm glad to be on. I'm a big fan of yours.
Hey, thanks so much for hanging out for so long. You've been on hold for a long time.
Yeah. So, I want to talk about anarchism in anthropology because, there's this idea that, society evolves to where now we have, the highest level of now we have society and government. But, I've heard about anarchism where that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. And, maybe we don't need to have government and all this stuff. And, there's this book by David Graeber, The Dawn of Everything. And, I've been reading a bit of that. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Talking about this book right here, which is right next to my desk. I love this book, dude. It's fantastic. Yeah, so The Dawn of Everything, for everybody who hasn't read it or hasn't picked it up, I encourage everybody to. David Graeber and David Wengrow were two anthropologists, and they are studying. They're taking a new look at human history through an anarchist lens. So when we talk about this is anarchist anthropological theory, it's anthropological theory is all about putting facts in order and understanding culture and humanity and everything in new ways by rearranging the facts that we know into better configurations and finding the most parsimonious way of explaining things. And personally, I'm a huge fan of anarchist theory. So I freaking love that book. I'm so glad that you're reading it. I hope more people read it. And you're absolutely right. Taking an anarchist approach and looking at human society makes us realize that, the government that we have and the systems that we have in place right now are not as necessary as we thought. There's, in The Dawn of Everything, they talk a lot about Hobbes and Rousseau. Excuse me, just one second. I had a scratchy throat. They talk about Hobbes and Rousseau and how Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote about, humanity was this perfect state of beautiful perfection, and it was this beautiful egalitarian wonderland. And then the more civilized we became, the more corrupt and greedy and mechanistic we became. And then Hobbes was saying that, we lived in a state of nature where life was nasty and brutish and short, and we needed this society to pull us out of it. And neither one of those things make sense. It was just life was what life was, and it didn't need to be the way that it is. I'm pretty sure they also criticized Service as well. Service was another anthropologist who talked about the four steps of society being a band, which was a totally egalitarian, just people gathered together and living together because they are. And then a tribe where they appoint a leader just based on merit. And then a chiefdom where that leadership is hereditary. And then a state where there's taxes and hierarchical ownership of things and things like that. And so that's another thing that's been a staple of cultural anthropology for a very long time. And it really doesn't have the merit that we think it does when we look at especially indigenous cultures. I love that book, and I'm so happy more people are reading it. Did you have anything in particular about it that you wanted to touch on, or do you care about just going off on a tangent with me?
I just wanted to hear you rant.
Well, you came to the right place, my boy. So the whole thing that I think is really important to take away from that book, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you because you're reading it, but like the biggest thing in just the first couple of chapters that they talk about is the indigenous critique of Western society, and they talk about when the first set, the first colonizers, the Jesuits and whatnot, came over here to America, and they would write. They actually, I'm pretty sure they cite a few like actual written testimonials from these people saying it's horrible here. These people have so much freedom, and they're just disgusted by the freedom that the indigenous people here have. And they're like, they don't listen to their leaders. They laugh at them and they mock their leaders. They don't respect authority. The women are able to dress how they want and get divorces when they want. The men do what they want for a living. They pick their careers and their jobs and their lives. They all contribute to their society collectively. And they're explaining like a lot of the freedoms that we today cheer for and believe wholeheartedly in, because at that time those were seriously frowned upon. And they're showing how advanced of a civilization this was. Whereas, for the whole, hundreds and thousands of years, while Europe was inventing the most creative ways to torture and murder each other, the people over on this side of the world were figuring how to live together in phenomenal ways. And it's not to say that, like we talked about a second ago, it's not to say that there was nothing but peace and happiness and everybody was smoking weed and singing Kumbaya over here. There was still war and there was still death and there was still famine, but they had a totally different social structure that was so vastly superior to the colonizers coming over to take over, that we, and so much of it is now something that we respect and believe in. A complimentary book that I think you would enjoy is called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It looks like, I think I talked about it on one of the other streams. It looks like this. Braiding Sweetgrass. This is a biologist. She's a botanist. And she is also a Potawatomi woman. And she talks about her upbringing as a native and like the lessons she learned and the worldview that she had and how it, enlightens her and conflicts so wholeheartedly with with Western capitalist society. She talks about in one of the chapters about the creation story that she learned as a kid of Sky Woman, which is that Sky Woman fell from the sky and the whole earth was covered in water and all the animals gathered together. The geese came up and caught her and helped her land without dying. And then all the animals gathered together and like, what do you need? How can you live here with us? And she said she needs land. She needs earth to walk on. And so the animals searched for land until finally the muskrat gave his life swimming to the bottom of the ocean and getting a little bit of dirt. And she took the dirt and she put it on the back of a turtle and she stepped onto the turtle's back and danced to spread the dirt around. And that is what made all the land in the world. That's why they called North America Turtle Island, because it's all this spread out. And she carried with her a handful of seeds. And the next thing she did was sow all the seeds across the land and grow this beautiful garden that we call all the greenery around us, all the life that exists about us. And so you compare that story to Adam and Eve. And the framework that we have in this Western culture, that we were put here on purpose to give dominion over this land, to own this land, and then because we were so broken and evil, we were kicked out of paradise to suffer. And compare that to we came here by accident. We are the newest arrivals to the world. We have the most to learn. We are the youngest here, and we helped create the earth and everything in it for everybody's benefit. We all live in the Garden of Paradise together because it's made for all of us, by all of us. And you compare those two stories and those two worldviews, and you see a significant difference. And it's the same way as when you compare the worldviews of, fascistic Western capitalism, which I can talk, everybody who knows me, if you watched the stream last night, I'm very much not a capitalist. This idea of ownership, of working to prove your worth, of deserving food and medicine by work, of your work ethic being something that's tied to your worth as a person, of denying your fellow person, your fellow human, your brothers, your sisters, your non-binary pals, denying them rights and dignity, of hierarchy, of social hierarchy, where you can be born superior to other people, the racism, the misogyny, the inequality, all of that comes with this Western culture. you compare that to, a more anarchistic view of the world. And anarchy doesn't just mean do whatever you want forever. It just means that any authority, any power, any system, any structure should damn well be able to justify itself. And if it can't, it should be dismantled. When you compare those two ideas, it's hard not, in my opinion, it's hard not to reject the framework and the heuristics that we were born into, and call them out for the trash that they are. Something that continuously oppresses and hurts and demoralizes and dehumanizes people, completely, unnecessarily. And so that's one beautiful thing that, like, when you study anarchist theory and archaeology, there's a really, really good paper. Hold on, let me look it up really quick. If you go to Google scholar.google and look up anarchist theory in archaeology, there's a really good paper that had this, is by Angelback and Bork. I think this is the one. Let me double check here. I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right paper here. Maybe not this one. That one looks cool though. I think that was the one that I was talking. No, this is the one here. So this is from, it's called Anarchy and Archaeology, and it's got a big A made out of some potsherds and a couple of tools and a ruler. And the SAA Archaeological Record, the magazine for the Society of American Archaeology, Volume 17, Number 1, published in January 2017 by Lewis Bork and Matthew Sanger. And you can find this if you go to scholar.google.com and type in anarchist theory and archaeology. It's the second link, and it's just, you can read this PDF. I read this in grad school, and it's a great breakdown of just understanding the bare basics of these things. So I encourage everybody to check that out as well. It's a great little read. An Introduction to Anarchism and Archaeology by Bork and Sanger from 2017. That's a good little ramble there. Did you have any other questions or anything you wanted to talk about in particular beyond that?
No, that was great. I mean, I could recommend like a couple anarchist books I've come across, if that's all right.
By all means. By all means.
Yeah, so there's Anarchism in the Black Revolution by Lorenzo Irvin. And he was working with the Black Panthers back then, and he's an anarchist, and he talks about how all that stuff, all the politics with that. And then there's The Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin, which is a pretty older one, but it's like really foundational stuff with anarchism and how all that works, you know?
Yeah,
so those are
classical.
two books I'd definitely recommend on anarchism. But yeah,
I would also recommend people look into, like, there's a lot of great things by Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is a very famous, I believe he's an anarcho-syndicalist, and he's written a million books on his ideas and his theories. There was one good one called on miseducation, I think it was, and it's talking about the American education system, especially the higher education system, as a to risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, it's as this propaganda machine for authoritarianism and capitalism. And they talk about how weird it is that we're this super democratic country. Oh, we're all about democracy, but we don't have democracy in the schools. We don't teach democracy. We don't practice democracy. We let you have some voting when you get older, and that's not democracy. And like, it kind of just exposes that I don't want to use the word hypocrisy, but a little bit that, you know what I mean? That's in our American system. That's another great one. It's a Chomsky on miseducation. I'm pretty sure the whole book is just a conversation between him and another academic talking about these things. So it's a great one. Especially if you like reading like Plato, now it's all this conversational things. It's the same kind of read. So that's a great one. And then also, if anybody wants like a more of a thorough breakdown, I encourage people to read like introductory anarchist theory or introductory archaeological theory books. Especially look at things like Black feminist theory in archaeology. This is one that I've recommended on this channel quite a few times. There's a great paper. Again, you can go to Google Scholar, look it up, called Black Feminist Theory in Archaeology by Sterling, I believe her name is. Absolutely monumental read. Also, sexuality studies in archaeology by Voss is another one it's similarly important because it helps you understand a little bit more about how when we look at the anthropological record, when we look at the way that we talk about humans, because remember, anthropology is a science. It's understanding what humans are, and it affects our discourse about each other. When we look at these things, when we look at lots of biological science, they're very much rooted in that Western capitalistic, puritanical, Eurocentric, white supremacist, cisgendered, heteronormative worldview. And those are the heuristics that established so much of our science. And so, I don't want to say like that, science is this corrupt, bad, evil thing, and it's this narrow little window, because that's not true. The whole point of science is to keep growing. I'm a scientist on purpose. Like it's the best way to learn about the world. But it's really, really important when we're talking about people to recognize the fact that the past several hundred years have been based in this Western ideologies, this white supremacist, cisgendered, heteronormative, patriarchal, misogynistic, puritanical, hegemonic bullshit. And now anything that counteracts that, anything that says, hey, other people exist and we don't need to be told to be good, that is what we now are addressing as woke. That's called anarchy, and that's called socialism. And like I said yesterday, people like to believe that socialism is anytime the government does stuff, and when the government does lots of stuff, that's called communism. And anarchism is anytime people are allowed to murder and rape each other, that's called anarchism. When really these are diverse, rich, beautiful schools of thought, full of different theories and ideas. It's like saying that you have the whole ocean and the ocean is tuna. It's like, that's one thing in there. There's so much more in there. And so like, that's how it is with any kind of anarchist theory. So I encourage everybody to look into it. It's a tremendous amount of fun. It's something I could talk about for a long time. But I've got the rest of the show to do. But does that satisfy does that scratch the itch for a rant from me?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, can't get enough.
I appreciate you giving me a chance.
Yeah,
you said what?
Love the show.
People love the show.
Watch your podcast. People love the show.
I'm so
Jimmy,
sorry.
Thank you for all you do.
So sorry. All right, man. Thanks so much for letting me rant like that. I really appreciate it, Alex. You're awesome.
All right, you too.
Take care, man. Bye-bye. Love that. It's anarchism and socialism and are things that I don't get to talk about in detail very much, and I always relish the opportunity. And you see how well I do it. Yesterday, I got to talk about anti-capitalism and why socialism is a good idea for a minute, and I immediately blew it and and I mixed up the words capitalism and communism when I was speaking and didn't notice until later. So I'm a fucking idiot. And this is also important that it's like when we talk about atheism, and people say, oh, you're not atheist, you're agnostic, and then we have to clarify, well, there's agnosticism and atheism are different things, and here's this but actually we use it these ways. It's the same thing with these things. If you look at like theory, if you're just reading the theory of socialism versus communism versus anarchism versus all these things, like there's clear distinctions, but there's also the historical side of it. And now socialism and communism, historically speaking, are actually going for the same thing, but they're different means of getting there. And socialism is evolutionary. You're trying to get into government and change things from the inside. And communism is revolutionary. You're trying to just overthrow everything. And even there within that, you have like the peaceful kind of ways. And then you have the freaking tankies that want to steamroll everybody and almost always lead to genocide. And they're assholes because they're fucking fascistic communists. And how is that supposed? If you understand communism, you can't be that way. It doesn't make any sense. But like that's the beautiful thing about it, is that these are diverse schools of thought that we're able to like really dig into and play with. But unfortunately, we live in this capitalist hellscape where you're not like, you get ostracized for talking about those things, because if you ask the average American what's the difference between anarchism, socialism, communism, and terrorism, they'll say the difference is spelling, because we don't understand that these are very different, very real things. And it's the same reason I talked about yesterday. I'll say it again just in case people didn't hear, is that Stalin and Hitler and all these monsters called themselves socialists and communists. China calls itself communist. which doesn't make any fucking sense. And now America, at this amazing opportunity, is saying, see, they said that's what they are, and you don't want to be like that. And we can all agree these people are monsters, but for some reason we have to pretend like they're the most honest people in the world. They never told a lie. They're fucking liars. The people in the USSR wanted socialism, and so Stalin was like, you got it. This is what it is. And what he actually did was state capitalism. And like it was worse.
I like when people yell like, these goddamn liberals are a bunch of socialist communists. Pick a fucking
exactly.
side.
What the fuck is that?
I also like when I tell people that I'm a libertarian socialist. Small L for the record. Libertarian socialist.
Yeah.
Those are always fun. What?
I usually use the words anarchist socialist or anarcho-socialist, which means communist if you think about it, really. But I'm making the distinction because of the historical differences and because of the context and because of the actual, like, real theoretical differences in what's going on there. And when I say that to somebody else, it scares the piss out of them. And that's a lot of more fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's not only more accurate, but it's also more fun to talk about because then you get to dig into the meat of what those words mean.
I like the you're not atheist, you're agnostic thing too. I've started just responding with like, well, you're not vegan, you're white. It's like the same thing. Like, wait, those aren't exclusive.
Man. Right? It's not a car, it's a Subaru. What?
Yeah.
So
that's nice because that's more that's actually a better one because agnostic and atheism are at least a little bit closer to each other than vegan and white are. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal it and tell everyone I came up with it.
That's big. You're welcome to it. You're welcome to it. I think we should get into some super chats.
All right. Sorry. Sorry, Dave and Clarence. I guess Forrest hates you. No, I'm kidding.
I apologize. You guys waited online for a long time. So one of them was asking about protocells. I'm not familiar with that researcher's work, so I don't know what to say about it, and I wouldn't have the time to deal with understanding it. So like, I'll look into it. I've typed it into Google here. I'll look into it, and if you want to call back next time I'm on, I promise I'll get you on faster than you've waited. And the other person wanted to talk about changes in biological classification. I don't know exactly what you mean, but like that happens all the time forever, and I don't know. Maybe fuck it. We're gonna take Clarence really quick. Clarence, you have 5 seconds to tell me what you're talking about, changing biological classification. Clarence, what's going on?
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for waiting so long.
I've been coming across a lot of kind of sciencey articles lately, in kind of popular media, not in scientific journals.
Faster, Clarence. I'm sorry, you got to go faster.
That talk about how recent in the past classifications were based largely on just looking at gross structures like skeletal systems and things like that, and that recent DNA studies are kind of turning a lot of former classifications inside out and upside down, because when they look at the DNA, they're finding that species that they frequently thought, or classifications that they frequently thought were closely related aren't, and ones that they thought that weren't related are. And so, the ideas kind of turned inside out and upside down. And I'm just wondering what, you seem like somebody who kind of keeps up on the cutting edge because you're a student and everything. What implications does that have for like basic, just the totality of evolutionary theory?
Massive implications. It's changed a lot of what we know about phylogeny and systematics. So when we phylogeny, I'm a fucking idiot. Phylogenetics and systematics. Phylogeny is a diagram. So it changes quite a bit. I'm going to mute you because you got a lot of wind noise. So like a great example is what we used to call pachyderms. We used to lump in elephants and hippopotamuses together in what we call pachyderms. which literally just means thick skin. And then genetic evidence came along, and we're like, oh, fuck, these guys are barely related at all. And so elephants are now in a new group called proboscideans, and we understand now the hippopotamuses are actually pachyderms. Or not pachyderms. Fuck me, God, I'm sorry. See, this is exactly what happened yesterday.
They're whales.
They're actually artiodactyls. They're artiodactyls. They're more closely related to whales than they are to elephants, yes. And so that's the whole thing, is that we are reanalyzing a huge amount of evolutionary relationships, and we're finding out a bunch of really cool stuff. And that's the whole point of like the cutting edge of systematics is genetics, is genetic testing. And it's also teaching us a lot of stuff that is challenging what we thought we knew. Like, for example, snakes. Snake evolution is a whole weird thing. I know Aron Ra just put out a video about it. I haven't watched it yet. So maybe
you should plug Wednesday's show too. Plug Wednesday's show now that you're.
Is he coming on Wednesday?
Matt
is Aron coming on Wednesday?
Wednesday, Matt and Aron are doing a dedicated to snake shit show. They're just going to talk about snakes.
Oh hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Hours.
But like one cool thing about snake evolution that I know, and again maybe Aron has read something newer that I haven't read because I haven't looked at this in a couple of years, is that we're not entirely sure where and why they evolved. The leading hypothesis for a long time was that snakes evolved from burrowing lizards, and they were burrowing in the ground, and they lost their eyelids and their limbs and everything to make burrowing easier. And these kinds of hypotheses are supported by, like, for example, Najash, which is a humongous snake that lived in what is now the Amazon several million years ago. And they had weird little mini legs that were kind of still hanging on. And that was definitely a terrestrial landscape at the time. But then also at the exact same time in the fossil record, we have Pachyrhacus from over on the other half of the world. Pachyrhacus is a palm frond type thing. Like, we have a long stem with little leaves coming off of it. And pachy means thick. And so Pachyrhacus is referring to the fact this thing has massive bones, this long rib cage. And it was living in the Middle East at a time when that whole area was underwater, and those heavy bones helped it to swim. It helped it to swim deep underwater. So here we have an aquatic snake ancestor. And like, what the fuck's that all about, right? And so we do genetic testing on snakes, and we're like, okay, so what's their closest relatives that are alive today that we can relate them to? Well, their closest relatives that are alive today are things like monitor lizards, the varanids. Okay, so that settles it, right? So they definitely have a terrestrial ancestor. But then when we test the varanids, they're really closely related to mosasaurs, which were aquatic lizards back in the freaking Mesozoic. So what the fuck are we doing, right? And so, like, we have this, like, back and forth with snake evolution, and DNA is just tearing apart what we thought we knew and opening up totally new avenues of understanding what's going on. And we still don't know what the fuck's going on. But it's allowing us to ask better questions, and that's the whole point of science. Does that answer your question, Clarence?
Do you think that's like in terms of how it relates to atheism and religion and everything, do you think the new discoveries are strengthening and clarifying the case for evolution in dealing with people who are anti-evolution?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I use genetics as an exemplar of like understanding evolution quite a bit. Usually when people are anti-evolution and I'm trying to like introduce them to the concepts, I only use genetics in so far as explaining like what genes are and what alleles are, so we can get into neo-Darwinism. A way better way of introducing people who don't understand evolution to what it is like things like artificial selection, because that's something they can see within a few generations. But absolutely, when you're really getting into the meat of it, breaking down like genetic lines of evidence, so unbelievably important, because honestly, we could throw out every single fossil we have, throw out every other line of evidence for evolution, and if we just had genetics, we would have all the evidence we need, because you can pick a single gene and literally just track where it changes and how it grows and how it deviates and how it mutates and build a perfect phylogeny that will perfectly match, the best, most parsimonious phylogeny that any evolutionary biologist could ever make.
So it's a matter of advances in technology that allow us to look at things on a level that's smaller than we could before.
The same way as any other science, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for taking my call, and also I'm glad to hear you talking a lot about the difference between all the different isms, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding over those things that need to be clarified. So keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. Especially in today's society, these are things that when you throw those words out, you're immediately like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Because people don't understand the difference. But I appreciate you appreciating the things that I'm doing, because that really means the world to me. With that, those are all the calls that I'm going to do today. We're now going to move on to Super Chats, because I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I spaced out, but I caught the summary there. So everyone just remember from that last call, hippos are pterodactyls. That's
Artiodactyls.
No,
Artiodactyls.
They're pterodactyls. Hang on one second. I'm changing a little thing on the back end here so that your face actually shows up.
You know what's really cool about pterodactyls?
A lot.
The word pterodactyl literally means wing fingers, because they had the whole ass wing is just their motherfucking pinkies. They had like they had an arm situation. They had one bone, two bones, little bones, long bones, just like we have going on. But then they had these little dumbass fingers up here at the top of their wing, and then they just had these gigantic ass pinky fingers that were the whole rest of the wing structure. Imagine if your pinkies were as long as the rest of your body and stronger than your biceps. That's how the pterodactyl do. How fucking cool is that?
That's pretty cool. Were they clawed? The hands that weren't the wings? Were they clawed fingers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they were. I'm pretty sure.
That's dope. That is. Hang on, I gotta fix. This was a super chat from yesterday. I don't even remember somebody talking about my catheter. I don't have a catheter in right now. I just brought up catheters. Maybe it was last week I brought it up. I don't know. Did we talk about catheters last week?
There was that one time when you were on with me and Erica for a long time, and fucking you needed one.
That's true. Okay, there we go. This is the correct one. $10 from Elizabeth Chris says, this should be fun.
And it was. I hope. I hope you enjoyed it.
I had a good time. I had no idea that hippos were pterodactyls.
God damn it. Artiodactyls. Just in case anybody wants to know, artiodactyl means even-toed ungulates. Parisodactyls are odd-toed ungulates. So artiodactyls are things like deers and mooses and whatnot, and even-toed, odd-toed ungulates. Parisodactyls are things like horses and whatever. So like you've got and also what's really cool is that cetaceans, whales, are artiodactyls. They broke off from that group. So whales and hippopotamuses and sheeps are more closely related to each other than any one of them is related to like a horse. How wild is that?
Yeah. Dope. Brian West says, I was really hoping Forrest would be in the robe with the pipe again.
I still have the pipe nearby. I only smoke I don't encourage anyone to smoke tobacco. I smoke one of these like twice a year, just as like a nice thing to just relax with and enjoy. But that's just pipe tobacco. So it's not like I'm sitting here chiefing on cigarettes like a freaking lunatic.
It is nummy though.
It smells really nice though.
Yeah.
That smells really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely thing. And I'm a grown up. And I'm accepting small amounts of risk. I'm not giving myself mouth cancer by smoking every day all the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 2 pipes a year, you're going to be fine. I think when even statistics on cigarettes, it's like when you're under 5 cigarettes a day, it's dramatically different than the average smoker's risk.
It's dramatic. It is dramatically different, but like still, like don't smoke though.
Yeah,
for real.
I quit.
For so many reasons.
When I was smoking, I only smoked like probably 3 to 5 a day, but I still quit. It's still good to quit, but I don't know. Fucking
yeah.
Who wants to live long?
It takes 11 years after you stop smoking. It takes 11 years for your risk of heart and lung disease to go down around the same level of that of a non-smoker, someone who's never smoked. So like you get to choose if you're a smoker. You get to choose. It's 11 years from your last cigarette. And that sounds like a really long time. And you're like, oh, fuck, it'll never happen. But like it's 11 years from today. Or if you stop smoking tomorrow, it's 11 years plus 1 day. Or if you stop smoking next year, well, it's 12 years now. You know what I mean? Like just it's 11 years from the second you stop. And it's a journey that gets easier as it goes on. The longer you're on it, the easier it gets. So stop immediately. Put that nasty cancer stick down and don't. It's a dumb way to die. Dumb way to die.
We got some good new merch coming. It says "Smoke kids, hippos are pterodactyls."
Check out the American Lung Association for really cool resources. I believe it's lung.org. They have really good resources for anybody that can want to stop smoking.
Thank you, Rebecca Osborne, for the $10. Did you see my live chat earlier saying neither Forrest or I are capitalists? Now please send us money.
No, I didn't. I had my face blown up across the screen, so I couldn't see anything you did. Because there's a delay, so if I'm watching this, I will not be able to focus on anything besides the fact that I'm not moving right. You know what I mean? So I blow up my live in front of the thing.
I get it. Jared Holman says, regulatory logic was one of the most beautiful things in biology for me. It gives organization to the chaos that is life. Loved the book Endless Forms, Most Beautiful by Sean B. Carroll.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I love that quote too. Endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. Lovely.
Is that book behind you? I feel like it's behind you.
It is not, actually, but I know what it is. I've never read it, but I've heard really good things, and I know that quote, and I know really good things. And I think Sean Carroll, I recognize that name as well. I just didn't want to be a dick and be like, I have no idea what any of that is, but here I am on the spot saying all that.
Dude, I ate such shit yesterday and the day before. I allowed myself to eat garbage, and I'm feeling it so hard today. This is why, man, I bought like
$100 worth of Indian food. I've just been chowing down on freaking chicken sagwala and then some like lamb rogan josh. Ah, so good.
I had 20 Reese's cups. I've been like eating healthy lately, and it's like helped so much. It's really annoying too, because like I was definitely going through like some depression shit, and then I changed my diet and it got better. But that makes me mad too, because anytime somebody's like, if I'm like, yeah, I've been depressed lately, and they're like, well, how's your diet? I'm like, fuck you. You don't know me. You can't cure me. And then it's like, but actually I changed my diet. Now I'm like way happier. And today, because of all the shit I ate, I'm just sluggish. Feel like shit.
It's crazy. I was talking to Amber about this the other day. It's mad how often this happens. It's like every time we eat out like fast food a whole bunch, and like I feel awful, and I gain weight, and I'm bloated, and I'm gassy, and I'm uncomfortable, and I don't feel good about myself, and I'm tired all the time, and then the second we start cooking at home or eating good food, if I'm eating mostly sushi or whatever like that, I feel fantastic.
Fucking amazing.
And I shed a bunch of pounds, and I fit in my shirts and my pants better. And it's the same thing with exercising. Every time I start exercising, I hate it. And every time I've been doing it for like a week, I feel incredible. And then I stop doing it because I'm like, I can take a day off.
Yeah, sure.
And then I never get back. And then 3 months later, I just feel like a fucking sack of crap. And I'm like, I guess I better get on the old treadmill again and hate it. Like,
yeah.
God damn.
I'll tell you though,
I feel better every time, and I blow it every time.
I can't exercise for the sake of exercise. I can't do it. There's something about my brain where I'm just like, this is the stupidest shit. I'm on a fucking treadmill or whatever.
It's boring.
So for me, it's woodworking. And if I eat well, I'll have the motivation to woodwork. And you don't fucking need to go to the gym if you woodwork. My thighs are sore every fucking night. But the thing is they're so like tied to each other of like, if I eat well, I will be very motivated to go and just make some, like, I've got this charcuterie board, and then I'm going to make these cheese knife handles for these cheese knives I have that I'm going to send as a gift to a friend in Canada. And I'm like so excited to do, I was so excited to do it on Friday, but I didn't have time. And then I ate like shit Saturday and Sunday. So now I'm at the spot where I'm like dreading doing it. So I'm like, I gotta shit all of this all these toxins out of my body, all of this sugar. That's what it is. I gotta get all this sugar out of my fucking body.
I can't exercise because it's so goddamn boring.
It's
like
so
on the treadmill,
boring.
I'm just there for 10 minutes doing this, and I just want to die. It feels bad. I'm just doing this forever, and like it kills me. And so like I have to like do something else with my brain, like listen to something, and that only works a little bit sometimes. Like the whole
I might
thing,
have the solution for you. I was just gonna say I can do audiobooks, but when I'm exercising, I have to put them on 3 times speed. I already listen to everything on double, but exercising, I throw it up to 3 times, and that's enough to occupy my brain. If I absolutely must exercise for the sake of exercise, which again, so stupid to me.
I just miss, like, when I was working through my first biology degree, I did, it was during my early undergrad, I worked for this exotic animal sanctuary, and I was just it was an awful job. God, it was the worst. But, like, I was doing strenuous physical activity all the time. So like I was always on my feet. I was catching snakes. I was wrangling freaking caimans. I was picking up a donkey. I was chasing chickens. One time I had to carry an emu that got stuck in a weird position, and I had to freaking pick that thing up. Like I was always doing stuff, and so I stayed skinny all the time. But now my life is so sedentary because I'm just doing research. I'm just sitting in a lab doing this, just grinding teeth, and like, I don't know, man.
You're like an anthropological dentist. Hey, welcome to the other side.
Yeah.
You just became.
Yeah, I'm also 30 now. So
have you yet experienced your credibility instantly for no good reason increasing?
Maybe, but also I've gained in like fame over this time, so I've also gotten like significantly more haters. So like I think as many people as believe me and take me seriously because I'm 30, now I also have that exact same amount of people at least saying that I'm crazy and I'm evil and I'm the Antichrist and all these things.
Yeah, I was 28 when I started my YouTube channel. I'll be 32 or I'll be 33 in March. So my 5-year anniversary of my 5-year anniversary is this coming February 14th of YouTube. But so I saw the same thing because that's when my channel was taking off was pretty close to my 29th birthday, and then it rocked over but there's still just something about when you're not in your 20s anymore. You'll see it more or less online, but you'll definitely see it like when you're interacting with people. The fact that you're not in your 20s is, I think it'll affect when you apply for like grant research and shit like that, research grants and shit. Literally people are just like, and okay, he's not in his 20s, so let's do it. Like it's fucking wild just how you become more credible because you're not in your 20s anymore.
My next research grant is the end of January, so I'll let you know how it goes. I was checking my calendar. I'll let you know how it goes for sure.
I also have a habit of trying to lie to people about my age. I really am about to be 33, but last night I was trying to convince somebody I'm 41, and I got pretty good. And then I eventually tell them I'm lying, but sometimes I lie just for fun. I always tell people I'm lying. Yeah, it's a weird thing we have in common. Anyway, sorry.
I'm 46. I use a lot of creams and I eat a lot of carrots. So you just got to live with that.
But we went off on a whole thing. The only reason I was saying this is I just wanted to explain if as I'm reading super chats, you hear a lot of like indigestion burps. That's what's going on. I meant it to be a 10-second thing, but it's you and I who can go on for fucking days at a time. Anyway, James Call says, I want a question for us about plants being giving creatures, but I'm much too drunk to call in. I don't know what that means.
So like, remember, like, so think about like, plants are very diverse. They're immensely diverse. So like, I'm going to leave a huge amount of things out, but like, think for example, about fruits. Why are fruits a thing, right? And so like, little berries, brightly colored, very sweet. They are there to be eaten. They're attracting attention and they taste good. The point of berries is for the birds to come and eat them and then poop out the seeds a long way, miles and miles away. So that way the parents don't have to compete with their offspring. So this is a giving relationship that benefits the plant.
That's dope.
Like that's the evolutionary way of looking at it. And again, holy crap, that's one mini sliver. But like what I was talking about them being giving things, what I'm saying there is that, plants also make things, they make food and they also make medicine and they give those things away for free. And what they benefit from that is, things like spreading, and they benefit from that in terms of like, population control. They benefit from that in all manner of ways. They get a benefit from like the community aspect. And that's what's so beautiful when you look at like community ecology is that, remember, there's a species, there's one organism, there's a group of organisms here. A group of one kind of organism is called a population, and all the populations in an environment altogether is called a community. So it's the cows in the field, plus the birds, plus the snakes, plus the ticks, plus the grass, plus the fungi, plus the trees, plus the crawfish in the stream. It's like all of the living things in this area, all the different populations of the community. And what's so beautiful about community ecology is that they're all in this beautiful dynamic together. They all rely on each other. They all benefit from each other. The worms in the soil, tilling the soil and eating all the detritus and like breaking things down and pooping out healthy soil, which helps the fungi, the mycorrhizal fungi, grow between the roots of the grass. And the fungi absorbs extra water from the rainfall and retains it in the soil and soaks up extra nutrients in the soil and gives it to the roots of the grass. And inside the roots are endosymbiotic bacteria called rhizobium. And these rhizobia live inside the root cells and help to extract extra nitrogen to really boost the grass with fertilization. The grass grows in this area and feeds the cows and allows them to live. And also the ticks crawling through the grass feed on the cows, so they rely on the worms and the dirt and the soil and all these things as well. And the birds that eat the ticks and eat the berries that grow on the plants that grow in the soil, that also benefit from each other. And like every single level of this relies on each other. I talk about this a lot in episode 4 of Light of Evolution. If you want to go talk, I use this exact same analogy. Every single living thing in this community relies on each other. And if imagine if one of these things, imagine if one of these cows chopped down all the grass, clear cut everything, and said, all right, now you work for me, and if you don't earn enough from me, I won't give you any food. The ecosystem would fall apart. Communities work by giving and sharing and taking. It's a gift. It's something beautiful that you get to participate in. It's not something you own and take and give to somebody if they earn it. It's something that just is. And your job as a receiver of a gift is to receive the gift. And your job then afterwards is to find a way to benefit the world that you live in as well. It's so very different. It's so very, very, very different than this idea of having to earn your right to live in your place in the world. That's bullshit. This is a beautiful garden that we all get to live in and share with each other. And plants, I think, are a great example of that. They're great teachers.
James is going to be thrilled when he sobers up. He got his $10 worth. That's great.
Sorry, I forgot I was talking for $10. I was just rambling on. Yeah.
There's somebody in the chat who just every time I come up decides to shit on me, but is like, but I really like Forrest. Did you know that you can enjoy Forrest without shitting on anybody else? Go take a fucking nap, you grumpy asshole. Anyway. Dual Wooby, you guys rock. Would love to hear your thoughts about the local universe not being real. Also, fuck transphobe. Let people be themselves. Is that like simulation theory?
Probably.
What would make it
the heart? I'm not.
How would it not be real,
sure
even
exactly
if it is a simulation? I mean, subjectively to us, it'd still be real.
Yeah, let me just really quickly just type into Google here, local universe not real, and see if anything particular jumps out that I can understand. The universe is not locally real from Scientific American, and the physics Nobel Prize winners proved it. Oh, I heard about this, but I don't fully understand it enough to talk about it because I haven't taken the time to actually read what they wrote. But quantum information science among the vibrant subfields in physics, blah, 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 blah. Those are talking about, well, that's cool. I think I'm talking about Bell's inequality here. Neat. Design for electricities.
I mean, I feel like the answer is the same no matter what. Whether it's real or not, your entire life depends on you behaving as though it is. Same thing with free will. Whether we have it or not, your entire life depends on you acting as though we do. And we probably don't. Like, that's the fucking fucked up part.
I'm at least comfortable in saying that we have significantly less free will than we like to pretend that we do. Okay, so yeah, what they're doing here. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm not going to fuck around anymore and let you guys watch me stare at this, but it's basically what they're doing is they're doing a Bell test. It's a physics experiment for testing like quantum mechanics theory, and they're doing it in a very real sense, and they're challenging our assumptions of reality, and it's fucking cool. And I don't have time to pick apart what they're actually saying here enough to talk about it. I am not a physicist, so I would have to really read this a lot in order to be able to say anything intelligent about it. As opposed to like if it was a biology thing, I kind of pick out a few keywords and get the gist. But like this is so far beyond my wheelhouse, I would need to really sit down with it. However, I do have some friends that work at CERN that you should look up. So like I think James Beecham is one that's on TikTok, and he's great, and he probably has some cool shit to say about this. Other physicists. I don't know, but go to my TikTok page and click on my following list and look for physicists in there, because I follow a lot of them, and at least 2 or 3 people from CERN, and that's I think where some of this experimentation was done. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry you wasted €5.
Terrible. JK.
I tried to understand, but I don't have the time to dig into it.
Someone in the chat asked, is the bullying Jimmy thing only for hosts, or is it condoned for the audience? The funny thing is the audience is not really allowed to shit on any other host but me. But I've actually told my moderators, if people if they're not saying something outright bigoted, you can let insults toward me through, but doesn't mean I'm not going to fucking take a shit on your day if I see it.
I used to bully you a lot. I used to bully you a lot more because I was having fun with it. But then, I think you and I both noticed, people were starting to think I was serious, and it's like I'm not. There's no way that you can take me seriously, and if you are, I'm not doing that shit in it. You know what I mean? It's God.
I sell it too well. The straight man, funny man dynamic. I sell it too well.
Yeah.
There's a problem. But I genuinely. That's I was just going to be all sappy and say, I genuinely really love Forrest as a person. And so any of that on my side was all a joke. We talked about it after one of the shows where I was like, hey, I just want to make sure you know, all that, antagonizing you about puns. That was the bit. Yeah. And you were like, yeah, of course I knew that.
Of course it was. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so hard about it, is because I don't want to get too sappy here, but for real, I fucking love knowing you, dude. You're a fantastic person. You're a tremendous amount of fun to talk to. I respect the hell out of you as well for the amount of work that you put into all these things, for so many other reasons. But it's if it ever isn't obvious to somebody that we're fucking around, the show isn't worth you know what I mean? The bit isn't funny anymore.
Right. It's also it's hard to market stuff and be like, hey, Jimmy Snow's launching another new project, and that be a positive if people think that legitimately everyone who works for me hates me, when we all love each other. This is my family. Yes, I pay them to be my family, but they're still my family.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I shit on my shows all the time. I talk about I have the worst podcast in the world, and I'm doing this terrible show and all these things, and that's me doing me. So it's difficult when you incorporate other people into it, because then it's really people don't see where the lines are, and it gets tough.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. It's all good.
Anyway, next thing.
This gotta love Tyler Christians doing backflips to treat people opposite of what Jesus told them to do. Treat them how they want to be treated. Dang,
man. Dang.
Yeah, some of Jesus's teachings weren't so great, but we'll do a whole breakdown of how stupid the Sermon on the Mount is another day. Let's see. Andrew Pina says,
hey, it's the same guy.
If we are just animals, then rape isn't evil. Why are humans evil if they're just doing what other animals do? Religious morality also has problems. But it looks like, is he quoting it, or is that his quote? How does a super chat look? 1 second. No, that's his quote. So
they're all in quotes. Yeah, they're just saying things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this guy called it. He said this the last time as well, and you told him to fuck off and call in the show, and he didn't. He just sent $5 to say it again. What's really important to keep in mind here is that, number one, all sorts of horrific shit happens in the animal kingdom. Gorillas especially are known for infanticide. They're really, really good at it. However, we also see compassion and altruism and empathy and love and kindness and all these different things out there as well. So, these are things that we have going on. We are just animals, but we also have the unique opportunity to talk to each other with really complex language about what it means to be a person and how we feel about certain social situations. And I can understand better than any other animal that, me doing something shitty to you has lasting, painful effects on you, and I can empathize with that and decide not to do it. I can do that better than any other species because of the brain development that took place in the hominin lineage. Humans are uniquely capable of compassion across time and space. We are good at that kind of deep thinking. So yes, we are just animals. And also, yes, rape is a shitty thing to do. Now, you throw around words like evil here. Remember that there's no actual such thing as good and evil. Nothing matters. Everything is nothing. Everything is bullshit. We're all the same rotting pile of nothing on the same shitty-ass rock. Nothing actually matters. However, we live in this world together, and we can see each other's happiness and each other's pain, each other's joy and each other's suffering. For this brief moment, average human lifespan in this country is, what, around 80 years? I'm 30. I've used up almost half the time that I have left. I have a very tiny little bit of time in this planet. I'm going to use my tiny little bit of time to try to make life at least a tiny little bit better for at least a tiny few amount of people. If I can do that, then I think I've done pretty well. Does it matter in the end? Is like cosmically speaking? Of course not. Love, freedom, all the things that we care about mean nothing on a cosmic scale. But they do matter to people here on this planet. They matter to us here. And you can either be a dick and it doesn't matter, or you can be a good person. And like that, why not be good? There's a really cool, old fable about this, about like this kid I'll be succinct. I'll be sure. I've used the word succinct. I'll be brief.
Prompt. I like prompt.
I'll be quick about this.
Tweet length.
Yeah, prompt. I like that too. There's a kid walking down the beach, and the tide's rolling in, and all these starfish are getting washed up on the beach, and they dry out and die on the beach. And this kid's walking down the sand, picking up starfish and throwing them back in the water so they survive. And this businessman walks over and says, "You fucking stupid kid, don't you get it? The tide's going to roll in anyway. These starfish are going to wash right back up and they're going to die. It's going to happen over and over forever. Don't you see, no matter how hard you try, this isn't going to make a difference. There's millions of starfish on the beach. There's no way you can save them all. Don't you see that what you're doing doesn't matter?" And the kid doesn't say anything. He picks up one more starfish and throws it in the water and says, "It mattered to that one." And that's the key to compassion and kindness and empathy. Of course it doesn't fucking matter, you idiot. It matters to the person you're doing it for. That's
that
what
kid
matters.
Was Albert Einstein. Sorry.
And then everyone clapped.
Yeah. I just fucking religious people love that completely made up story that they attribute to Albert Einstein about false. Darkness is the absence of life and evil is the absence of God. And that child, Albert Einstein. They've made it into videos, even though they can't research.
Yeah, no, I've heard it's so stupid.
Yeah.
God.
Andrew would have his mind.
Difficult.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's surprisingly difficult to get across to religious people, especially that like just because life is meaningless doesn't mean that it's without meaning. You know what I mean? Meaningless and without meaning don't necessarily conflict. They're not the. You know what I mean?
But
because
it's not even meaningless.
Matters doesn't mean you don't.
Try and define meaning without creating subjectivity. Like, I ask anybody, like, what is the definition of meaning? And there's no way for them to bring that up without. So you can still say life is objectively meaningful because people find meaning, but it doesn't. It's just not predefined. It's a very subjective thing. Right. It's not predefined.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I mean, is that meaningless in the cosmic sense of the world. You know, if the entire Earth was wiped out today by a huge meteor impact and the whole planet blew apart and everything died, nothing changes in the Andromeda galaxy. It's fucking fine. It makes no difference. So life is meaningless in terms of like it's inconsequential universally. It doesn't mean anything. Like it has no inert value. Life does not have an inherent value, purpose, anything, but like meaningful in terms of like how you apply to it and how you work with it and how you mean, you know what I mean? The impact that you have on other people, that fucking matters. And so you can
I guess
choose
what I'm
to be
saying
an
though is like,
and nothing changes.
Or
you can choose to be a good person and help people.
I still kind of disagree with the presentation, but I know I'm being slightly pedantic, so I'm sort of telling you what I'm like, what I mean by it. To say
you're telling me you're pedantic.
To say the universe has no meaning is sort of like saying the universe has no emotion, The quality, it's not a quality of the universe to have emotion in its totality. You're like looking for a feature that I remember Richard Dawkins' old example of what's the color of jealousy. You're asking a question that's actually, it sounds profound, but the question is meaningless. It's stupid. And so like whenever you say like, it's almost like when we talk about the differences between different beliefs, like atheism, like whether it's lacktheism versus the affirmative, it kind of reminds me of that, where it's like you're describing, when you say the universe is meaningless, is like you're saying the universe is sad. Neither of those are qualities the universe could have, because that's not what a universe does. And that's what I mean.
Well, I love the way you phrase that, and I'm absolutely stealing that. That's great.
And pretend it's yours, like I'm going to do with your Subaru example.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a
absolutely,
trade.
I will.
It's a trade.
I will not be crediting you whatsoever.
Thank you. I prefer it that way.
Curl. Look at this one curl bouncing around on my
I love that
stupid
curl.
head. You seeing that?
Dude,
it's driving me crazy.
Do you know how many people would kill for that curl? Me. I'm ready to start committing murders now. The only other thing I was going to say is Andrew would have his mind blown to find out that there are monkeys which punish rapists in their communities.
Yeah, there are. That's another thing, is that like I mentioned altruism and compassion and kindness. There's also law and order, especially in the primate kingdom. Primate kingdom, I'm fucking stupid. Especially in the primate family.
Yeah. Though violent the specific example I remember watching, I'm trying to remember what it was. Were they bonobos? But someone, basically an animal, tried to, the female was resisting and screaming out. And so the like head of the community came over and just ripped the dick off of the creature that was the one that was trying to rape the female.
That sounds more like a baboon than a bonobo, but yeah.
Yeah, sure, that could be. Just fucking terrifying. Anyway, sorry, now I'm making it take forever. $5.
Feel free to spend another $5 to ask the same ridiculous question again, though, Andrew. By all means,
do it every week.
Keep telling us.
We love them $5. Harry Chairstepper said, hey, Forrest, I just want to say I love your work and I think you would be a good friend. You're a friend shaped like a capybara. I can confirm Forrest is a good friend.
I am a terrible friend because I never talk to anybody. I just keep like working on things and I'll eventually call somebody one time. I'm a very non-communicative and weird person. I'm bad at it.
Maybe that's why we get along so well, because you and I, just when we find convenient times, we'll link up during the convenient times, and neither of us are offended if it's not convenient at that moment.
Right. That's oh my god. I think it was John Mulaney who was talking about that. It's like that's what being a friend as an adult is instead of like we have to put all these plans, all these things. It's like, hey, are you free next Thursday? No, cool. I'll talk to you in 5 months, and it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. Yeah, or the absolute relief there is when somebody cancels plans. They're like, hey, I'm really sorry to do this, but I actually can't hang out Thursday. And you're like, oh, that's too bad, but fucking dope.
I guess I'll just have to keep eating an ice cream sundae in my pajamas. What will I do?
No, it's not as though I would rather do anything than go out. Anyway, Captain Red Bull says, are your books really real, or are they all like mine with the middle of the pages cut out for my stash? You would have a huge stash if that was all weed behind you.
I fucking have never once, like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't destroy a book. I love books too much. I would love to have a stash like that, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Even a shitty book, you know what I mean? I go to the bookstore in my town. Here in Tulsa, there's this place called Gardner's Used Books, and I go there. I have like $1,000 in store credit, and I just go there all the time and just clear out their science section. And like,
are you collecting? Are you like collecting too? Yeah. Like you want like first editions of stuff?
Oh no, I just want to read more things. And like that's the damnable misery is I buy like 50 books and I get to read like one a week because if I get, or one a semester, because I'm so fucking busy in school, I don't have time to read anything else besides textbooks and shit and papers. And so like the vast majority of the books you see around me, I've never had the chance to read. I pull the ones that I know what's in them, or I've read enough of them, or like I've read a few chapters that I needed and things like that. But like this section here is a tiny fraction of what's all throughout my house. I've got like 3 massive bookshelves in my living room. I've got a bookshelf in my studio. I've got another bookshelf here. I've got another bookshelf behind my desk over there. I've got like bookshelves everywhere, and like 80% of them are things that I'm trying to get a chance to read soon.
Sure.
This shelf right here has 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 6. This is 16 books here on this shelf next to my couch and my desk here, which are the ones that I'm currently trying to get through. And like that's, you know what I mean? So like,
how many books a year do you think you get?
Oh my gosh, if I'm lucky, maybe like 5 or 6 or something like that. But when I'm not in school,
a year, 5 or 6 a year is how many you read?
Yeah, well, it depends on what I'm doing in school. Because last semester, I probably did like 10, but like the semester before that, I was to get through 1. So it's like when I'm not in school, I study so much. I don't know how to not study and just learn things. I love it so much. So when I'm not in school and I have like a break between semesters or just a bullshit boring semester, I'm studying like crazy on other things.
Sure.
And I know
audiobook
I'm
at
done
all?
with grad. I sometimes when I'm driving for a long time, sometimes.
Yeah.
But I do it very often.
I love audiobooks.
I especially when I can speed them up, I do the same thing as you.
Yeah.
It's hard. I love reading so fucking much, and I love learning so fucking much, and so just like more knowledge is always a good thing. And I find tasty, delicious books, and I just like read like a chapter or 2 out of them, or I'll read the table of contents and pick like 2 chapters that I can get through quickly, and then I like get the gist, and then I can move on to the next book. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's just the only way I can do it.
Sure. Do you edit on double speed? That was my last question, because we were talking about the speeding things up. I do. I'm up to like triple and quadruple speed now, because I know what I've said for the most part, and usually I even know what I'm looking for. Like, oh, I remember that I fucked up this part or whatever. So yeah, I it's why I don't know how aware of my old production schedule you were, but I used to do quote unquote nearly daily atheist content, but it still looked like it took a while to produce. But I was seriously like the process of filming, editing, uploading, and release was like a 5-hour day. It was just 5 hours from start to finish. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I love those days. But anyway, Heathen Queen says, Forrest, what's the difference between a well-dressed man on a unicycle and a poorly dressed man on a bicycle? Attire. You're welcome.
Nice. Very nice.
Harry Chairstepper says, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
What's the best kind of Christmas present that you can get? A drum. A broken drum. A broken drum is the best Christmas present. You just can't beat it.
It's funnier because you fucked up the punchline, honestly.
Yeah, right. The most important part of it, I blew it.
Yeah. There's an episode of American Dad where Roger says, how come you'll never starve in the desert? And then they're like, why? And he goes, because of the sand that's there. And then no one laughs, and he like freaks out and murders them all. And then he says, because of the sand which is there. And they were like, you said sand that the first time. And he's like, oh, my bad. Oops. Anyway, 2 muffins baking in the oven. One turns to the other, says, gee, sure is hot in here. And the other replies, holy smokes, it's a talking muffin.
Love that. What happens when Kent Hovind gets into an elevator?
What?
He's wrong on many levels.
That's funny. I like that one. I'll probably borrow that one. Kim Wilson says, I'm mixed when I'm with my Latino family. People assume I'm Latina. And with my black family, I'm black. Tyler, which am I, Latino or black? I can only be one, I guess.
Right.
The fucking, that call hurt me.
It was so many, and I was trying so hard to just be as nice as I could be, because I wanted this guy. He really sounded sincere. He sounded like this was things he really, and I didn't want to just like yell at him and be like calling out a whole bunch, because then he would just. And what sucks is that like what I don't think he understood is that he was saying like he doesn't want people ostracized for their beliefs, and the reason for that is because if a person has a shitty belief and you attack them, they're going to lock down into that belief, right? And that's my philosophy talking to Tyler, is I'm trying not to attack you so you don't lock down into your shitty beliefs. But by doing that now, I don't want to overindulge you. And like, because if he understood, like, he was a teaching moment, like, and he was so upset about it. Like,
there's benefits to both, I feel like, but also like with him coming from Mormonism, just the fucking thing of like, Tyler, you remember the moment where you realized, oh shit, all of those times I was sure I wasn't a bigot, I was a bigot about this and this and this, coming from Mormonism. You're there again. You're sure you're not a bigot as you're being a fucking bigot. Like,
precisely.
And the biggest thing is like,
so painful.
I get not wanting to let people lock down, but I can't abide such dishonest interact. He was so dishonest the way he was presenting it. It was just
really hard to get him to just answer one question.
Yeah. Dante Verona says, just a mere suggestion. On your channel, would you ever consider doing a video on Gorgona, you say it.
Gorgonopsid.
Thank you. That animal is fascinating and scary as hell.
They really fucking are, and they're in my favorite time period too. My favorite geological period is the Permian, and Gorgonopsid is fucking insane. I want to do a whole series on Permian animals, but I'm not well versed enough. I'm just not confident in it. You know what I mean? I feel like I could do something, especially if I took some time and sat down and like really wrote one. I could do it. In fact, I'm gonna. I'm gonna. It's not gonna be just Gorgonopsid, but I'm gonna do a whole thing about Permian animals, and I'm gonna do it next year on my YouTube channel, probably earlier on in the year if I can help it. But they've got like 8 or 9 sponsorships ready to go next year, so like that would be a good one to do. So yeah, I'll do Permian animals on my YouTube. Just go subscribe and stay tuned for that sometime in 2023. I will absolutely make that video because I would love to. I've been wanting to for a long time. I just don't have the time to get confident, to read enough about it, to get confident enough to write something about it. You know what I mean? So like, I would love to.
Sounds like a Pokemon.
It's not my usual cup of tea. Gorgonopsid. Imagine a reptilian wolf, and that's Gorgonopsid. Fucking horrific.
Where were you when you found out? Aliens. Oh, those are cool. Where were you? I feel like you'll remember. Where were you the moment you found out about Simatoa exigua? It's such a traumatic experience for everybody. Oh, the tongue. It's the common name's the tongue-eating louse. It's that parasite that eats the tongue of fish, and then it lives in their mouth and behaves as their tongue.
Yeah, they're isopods. Yeah, they're wild, dude.
Awful.
There was I think it was called The Bay, is a horror movie about those like adapting to attack humans. It's really crazy.
And specifically when they do it with clownfish, it's symbiotic, not parasitic. They literally like behave as the tongue for them.
Yeah, it's wild.
Fucking nuts. Wild. Terrifying. If you're wondering why I'm rambling, it's because I've been pulling up a picture to traumatize our audience.
Excuse me, I don't mean to keep yawning. I apologize. I woke up at 4 this morning, and so like I'm just kind of like at the end of the day.
It's also, it's right after a holiday. We've all indulged. Mm-hmm. He smoked a bunch of that weed that's behind him in his book stashes. It happens. Why will this photo not work? All right, maybe I should just go on to the next thing. People are going to be relieved and like, I didn't want to see it anyway. Well, fuck, I can't get it to work. All right, we'll just go to the next one. Fucking Kathleen Moncrief says, don't trust atoms, they make up everything. I think you've told that joke before. Yeah.
Probably. Sounds like some shit that I would say.
Dylan Fuller says, had therapy today and mentioned how much I love learning and forming, and she asked me why, as in why do I enjoy it, and it sat with me a bit. I'm curious, why do you enjoy teaching? Why do you learn?
That's a great question. I fucking love teaching. It is there are very few things in this world that truly, truly just like fill me with joy and just make me incredibly happy. One of them sitting out there, and the other one is learning and teaching. Like those are the things that get me going. And the cool thing about it is that the only thing more fun than learning science is teaching it. So as far as why I love learning is because I am a passionately curious person. I can't stand not knowing things. I have to understand. I have to tear things apart and learn more about them. This world is so fucking cool, dude. Like, Have you seen this place? It's radical. And like, I want to learn everything there is about it. But whenever you're excited about anything, you want to share it with people. And that's what makes teaching so much fun, is that like when you get to know a cool thing, then you want to go share it with people. Think about it like a platter of cookies, right? Cookies taste best when you can share them with friends. So like I got this fucking amazing world, this platter of cookies all around me. I want to learn how to access as many cookies as possible, and I want to give as many cookies away as possible. That's the life I want to live. It's a wonderful place, and like to get to experience it and see it for what it really is so fucking cool. It's so much better to like get to see, like I'm sitting right here in my office, right? And like everything around me is familiar. These are all things that I've seen, I understand. You might think that it's boring, but like there's also immense amounts of light in here that I can't see. The electromagnetic spectrum extends far beyond human sight. And if you want to prove it, I could turn off all the lights in this room, have it be pitch black, and I could still turn on a radio and still pick up a frequency from the 106.9 here in Tulsa and listen to some modern pop music, because radio waves are light waves that are still in this room all around me. It is blindingly bright in here with all the lights turned off because of all the other colors on the spectrum that I can't see. And I can sit here and just look around and think about that. Think about a bug, an insect floating on the surface tension of a pool, right? And people are jumping into the pool. They're diving in all over the place, and it makes waves, and this bug is being tossed around in the waves of the pool. Imagine if that bug, by analyzing the waves acting on it, could interpret and understand who jumped in, when, and where, and how big of a person they were, and and if they could decipher that. That's exactly what your motherfucking eyeballs are doing. You have all these different waves of different frequencies coming at all different angles, and you're able to interpret what they mean and then establish shapes out of that, and like designs, and understand what things are. How fucking radical is that? And like it's just such a beautiful thing to think about. And then to get to tell people about that so they can be happy too and share that joy. Like I don't know of anything more fun than that. That's just the best thing in the world. So that's why I learn, and that's why I teach. I learn because this world is fucking awesome, and I teach because I want more people to understand how fucking awesome this world is, so you can come play with me. Come play and learn in this beautiful place, because cookies taste better when you share them, and life is more fun when you explore it with other people.
That's a good answer. I'm just a narcissist.
Go on for a long time. I go on for a long time about that.
I enjoy a captive audience. Oh, by the way, not to undermine your point about how great the universe is, but this thing exists.
Yes.
Awful.
Yes. Let me lure bit. Yeah. Look at that guy.
Awful.
Ah, so cool. You know what's really interesting? I remember studying in my undergrad. I did a class in animal parasitology where we just studied like different parasites and how horrifically they can affect different animal species. And that was one of the things that really like shook my brain up about life itself, because I was looking at these things that like I've told you about some of my favorite parasites, right? Like these tapeworms and these burrowing creatures, these things that cause blindness, these things that make your face rot off, these things that cause amoebic dysentery, and all these horrible creatures. And I just realized that like they have just as much right to live as I do. Their life is just as special as mine. They're not trying to hurt anybody. They're just doing the thing that they do. That's their niche. They didn't wake up and decide, oh, I need to fucking infect this snail so I can burrow into somebody's foot and give them roundworms. No, that's just what they do. And that's their life. And that's just how it is. And we apply our good, bad, whatever to it. But it's not. It's just what it is. And I'm not any more special than they are. They're just they're living their lives. They're doing what they're wanting. Like that class not only horrified me, but also knocked me down several pegs and really helped me understand like what this life is all about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I jumped straight back to the same meaning thing, though. Like, I'm actually more special because I can contemplate how special I am. That's literally it. And those things can't. Like, that's the entire thing that makes me special.
In the fact, it's like if you had all the money, so you're the only one who's rich. Does it mean anything in the end? Like,
right. And we're all gonna die and whatever, but I'm not gonna let them make me blind if I can help it. You know.
Right.
$20 from Scarlet Begonias, which sounds like a euphemism. Let me see your Scarlet Begonias. Sorry, Scarlet. $10 from Light Halcyon. Is there someone better organized than me keeping track of Forrest book recs? I can never remember them when I'm at the library and I'm knitting while I watch, so I can't write it down.
This is one thing you should look up. Just take some time while you're knitting. This is a book we talked about today, The Dawn of Everything, A New History of Humanity. Look this book up and buy it. It is a life changer. It's a thick bitch, but it's a great read. It's phenomenal. I can't say enough nice things about it. So definitely go read this one. And go back and rewatch the videos and earn us more of that delicious ad revenue by rewatching this show and writing down all the book recommendations that we have.
I have a question. What is the scientific theory behind creationists never correctly using your versus your?
Are you looking at the same one?
The live chat.
This person in the
You're
chat
right.
Says, you're right.
Yeah,
my right, Forrest. God's plural, not possessive. Creation is amazing. And I would say the same. If this person is serious, I would say the same thing that I said to the first caller. Any God that would make something like this on purpose is a monster. Evolution is incredible. Life is extraordinary because of the way it came into being and what it is. Incredible. If anybody ever made this on purpose, they're a fucking
idiot.
Psychopath.
So stupid.
Absolute monster.
Such stupid people. Or, I mean, I guess the only thing you could say is like, some creator who's so great, he definitely doesn't give a fuck about us because we would have to be some cosmic accident he's not even aware of, like a fucking pimple on his ass. Just nonsense.
Right.
It's just a bunch of nonsense. Anyway, not to defend deism. It's also stupid. It's just lazy atheism.
Right.
$100. Thank you so much. That's so generous from John Mathers. The concept of angels came from the worship of El Asherah, was a consort of El before she was a consort of Yahweh.
Those two things.
Sin was a polytheist.
Worship of El.
Oh, I see. I thought it was like a title. El was short for something. Came from the worship of El.
Like a Kryptonian name.
Right.
El Asherah.
Asherah was a consort of El before she was a consort of Yahweh. Sin was a polytheistic deity in Mesopotamia. Where did the concept of sin in the modern Abrahamic religions come from?
There is someone who is 1,000,000% more qualified than me to answer this. His name is Dan McClellan. He's on TikTok and I think on YouTube. He's a PhD in theology, and he has dissected this exact thing that you're talking about here several times. I have not remembered what exactly he said, but I would look him up. He's fantastic. I'll ask him if he wants to come on the show because he would be an amazing person to have on the show. He's fantastic. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But
John added Yahweh and the Gods and Goddesses of Canaan by John Day is free with the Internet Archive.
Neat. I don't know what that book is, but if it's a good book, I'll look it up.
I like how there's literally no way to defend Christianity as existing in a monotheistic universe. And they've redefined this whole thing as like, well, but we would only worship our God, so we're monotheists. It's like, so you just know nothing about polytheism. You fucking idiots. You're just stupid people. Anyway, I Killed Earl says for $20.
Real nice.
Anyone who fails to see the evolutionary link between man and ape has never used the restroom at a Walmart. Stay regular and stay fabulous, Forrest and Jimmy. You know what?
Never had someone encourage me to stay regular. I love that.
Nothing is regular about me, and today especially not my bowel movements. It's been a wild day. It's been tough. There's actually a real point in here to be made, though. Like, I remember as I was first learning about evolution and breaking free of my Mormon upbringing and stuff, I went to a bar and I saw two men fight, and they tore their shirts off and were banging the shirts. And I was like, I just saw this at the zoo with gorillas. Like the ways in which we naturally, like when your rage takes over and you're literally becoming an instinctual and you've picked fight in fight or flight, you look like such a fucking monkey every goddamn time. You're throwing your arms out to appear larger? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. The way people scream does it for me. Anytime I see people panicking and screaming, they sound like chimpanzees. Just making a loud alarm call and dashing around to try to get away from a predator. Like it's very, very ape. It's glorious. For me, the biggest thing that made that connection for me also, and this is, on another level, was I remember when I was in very early on my undergrad. I was actually still doing an education degree at the time. So it was before I actually started a biology degree. I was doing an education degree with a focus on biology, which was my first degree. And I had just gotten out of like my third biology class. And I was really starting to comprehend like taxonomy and evolution and things. And I remember laying in bed and staring at my hand like this, and just how simian that looked. And all of a sudden, this was an ape hand. This was no longer a human hand. It just clicked that this is an ape hand. And I was like, it looks like an ape hand. Oh no, it actually is one. Oh no, I actually am an ape. And that makes sense that it's not weird that my hands look like this. It makes sense that my hands look like this because I am actually an ape. Oh, and just my mind just blew to shit. And that's the kind of thing that I want to share to other people. Those moments are so fucking awesome, dude.
Someone took the bait in chat and tried to correct me and that apes because I said monkeys, and so I'm informing them that humans are still monkeys. It's a very common misconception.
Speaking, nested hierarchies. Yeah,
it's very
apes
common
are
misconception
monkeys,
amongst.
When you use the term colloquially, then monkeys have tails and apes don't. But ape is a subcategory of the whole what you would call a monkey clade, and so we're catarrhines. That's a monkey, but we are also great apes in that. You know what I mean? It's a connection there.
I'm gonna send the
check out nested hierarchies.
I gotta find Aron Ra does an incredible video on actually we are monkeys. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Gutsick Gibbon does as well, I believe.
Good. Gutsick Gibbons is probably shorter. I love Aron. I really do. Yeah, actually, who knows? Yeah, you're right. Captain Red Bull says, in memory of my own dad, I used to be a chain smoker, but those chains got hot quick. Let's see. A. Maria says, how can we apply concepts from braiding sweetgrass to the world? Made me think of permaculture, mimicking healthy ecosystems to grow sustainable food.
Yeah, sustainable agricultural practices are really important. Making sure that there's no empty space in your garden, that it's all green, and that it's cooperating species that grow together to benefit each other. These species that look beautiful together also have a great impact on each other, and that they ecologically benefit each other by attracting the kind of pollinators that the other one needs. Look up the term ecosystem services. And different plants that tend to grow together provide different ecosystem services for each other. They provide different services that allow the other one to live better, and they're in this beautiful mutualistic relationship without actually being symbiotic. And so that's one way that we can apply that kind of thing. Also, responsibility would be a huge step forward. Having corporations that produce products be responsible for the entire life of their product, even after they've been bought and disposed of. How are you also investing in proper waste management and not letting this thing just go pollute an ocean or get thrown in a landfill? Continued responsibility is another great way to change the world and or changing our worldview and our society to taking care of this planet rather than just saying, fuck it, it's your problem now. You know what I mean? It's all of our problem, and it always will be. That's another one. Indigenous land management and working with local populations. That's another one that's really, really important. But all of it really just boils down to getting ourselves off of our fucking high horses and realizing that we are a part of this world. We are not owners of this world. And we need to act like that. We need to act as a part of this. Always learning, always growing, always getting better, rather than these things that have dominion over the earth. That's a great way to die stupidly.
It appears somebody in the chat has decided that the show is about veganism, and yet it hasn't come up at all. Oh, you people with your fucking sideshows in the chat.
I am not a vegan, and I don't advocate for veganism. I don't have a problem with veganism. I have a problem when vegan people say that they're morally. I have a problem when people pretend that veganism is like this morally superior way to live, that everybody should be vegan all the time.
So it's possible.
I agree that the meat industry is horrific. The meat industry is terrible. We should really be working on that. However, also, meat is a part of a healthy diet and a huge part of our evolutionary story. We don't have to have such brutal and hideous meat harvesting practices in order to have a sustainable meat industry. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. We could have one that is actually quite humane and functional. And also, most vegan food is prohibitively expensive. So, like, it doesn't work for everybody. Most vegan alternatives to meat protein are things like peanuts and wheat and soy, which also happen to be the most common food allergies in the fucking world. So not going to work for everybody. And also, when you try to use all these vegan foods, a lot of the time they're staple crops from indigenous populations. So they're clear cutting huge swaths of rainforest in South America and displacing indigenous populations so we can grow a fuckload of quinoa and destroy their economies so that we can ship that quinoa up to California so some dickhead with a man bun can feel like he's superior to everybody.
Hey, let's not shit on man buns. Charming. How dare you? My man bun was incredible.
Veganism is fine. Veganism is charming. If it's what you want to do, that's great. But also, it's not the only answer, nor is it the best answer, and nor is it something that needs to be pushed on everybody.
You did this rant for free. You did that rant for free,
sorry.
and I do want to warn you. Someone's got to tell you. You have no idea.
Make a super chat right now.
You've just opened a can of worms. There are going to be response videos to just that shit. It's the worst. I usually just make a little shitty joke about vegans and move on because they are just awful people. Not all of them. I have vegans in my life who I very much love, and I will even say they've influenced some of my habits, and I've changed a lot of things about.
We could do a lot of things better. This country wastes enough to fucking end world hunger, and a lot of it's meat products. The amount of meat is horrific. We could do a lot of things better. But those are like major policy and societal changes. It doesn't necessarily have to be that everybody eats fucking raw potatoes all the time or whatever you people eat.
Someone was saying their favorite vegan that they would love to see a conversation between you and him. I'd rather fucking just shove a screwdriver in my ear. Anyway, Liz Chris says, future of bioethics and reproduction in regards to technology affecting genes and ability to reproduce externally. Do you see there was a video in the last couple of weeks that released of this company that's showing off their plans for a facility for outside of the womb gestation pods. Looks pretty awesome.
Radical.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Right, that sounds fucking awesome.
Dope
I'd be all about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No one will abuse that system.
Factory fucking farm children.
Yeah.
We were talking about needing more meat if we had a warehouse full of babies.
Sterilize everyone and only allow reproduction amongst the people I determine are elite. Nah, no one will fuck that up.
The people who accept LGBT folks, like that guy was worried about. You only get to breed if you're pro-trans.
That's right. By the way, no vegans get to reproduce. Vegan. Oh man, it's such a large conversation, though.
Eugenics. You better believe someone's actually fucking terrified of that. Fucking woke eugenics movements.
It's tough too, because a lot of people have this to the actual question, this sort of reaction of it'd be unethical to gene edit and try and select a way for this thing. And I'm just thinking, I just think about myself, and I'm literally y'all should have CRISPR'd my fucking genes way the fuck up. CRISPR the fuck out of me. Seriously. Y'all know what you fucking did to me inside and out. How dare you?
It's funny because the comment or the question is, why would you do this? Why would you try to alter a child's genes and make them what you want and all that? But then you're like, okay, we could eliminate Huntington's disease, we could eliminate cancer, we could eliminate AIDS, we could eliminate a vast majority of genetic diseases. We can make sure everybody has some sort of musical ability and they can really athletic and they can really good reading and they can learn a lot of stuff and make sure nobody has asthma anymore. Very quickly, it stops being why would you do that and why wouldn't you do that? Becomes a new question. Like, if you have the ability to make sure no child has asthma and cancer and shit, fucking do that. You know what I mean? So like, it's crazy, man. I don't think that humanity is ready for this conversation, but I did a minute ago. If you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have said that we're at the precipice and we can make this happen. After seeing our response to COVID, humanity is not ready for this conversation, but soon we will be, hopefully.
Hey, vegans in the chat, go do your soapbox somewhere the fuck else. I'm just going to be a fucking fascist right now and time you out just for being vegan. I just want to oppress vegans. That's why I did it. It's vegan oppression. I chose it. I chose it for that reason, not because you're fucking annoying and trying to have a sideshow. Diane Upshaw says, Forrest, what is a device for finding furniture in the dark? A shin.
There's an ancient technology that allows people to walk through walls. It's called a door.
It's dope. There was a Futurama thing where they were like, I'm going to use that app that allows you to see which restaurants are nearby. And Fry goes, the window? Yep. It's a free app.
Love that.
Sheridan Bernasconi says, I asked in chat and got lots of answers. What are manatees? Love you, Jimmy, and this show. Manatees are more closely related to whales than other things too, right? Which one's closer, hippos or manatees?
So they are in the order Sirenia, which is sea cows, Sirenians, manatees, sea cows, dugongs. By the way, dugongs are in a distinct family called Dugongidae, which fucking how great is that? No, pardon me. Dugongidae has got a Q in there. Dugongidae. That's a great name. But yeah, so they are not as closely related to whales. So here's a fucking fun fact. Whales are more closely related to sheep than they are to manatees, because whales and sheep and things are going to be in Artiodactyla. These guys are in Sirenia, which is a totally different order. So they are convergent evolution of like mammals going into the ocean in a totally different way. How fucking wild is that? I didn't know that. That's really cool. Oh, sick. I looked up manatee taxonomy.
Yeah.
And I went up to their order. Is Sirenia. So they are mammals, and then the order Sirenia. Let's see if they have an infra-order here or a super-order.
I had a person once tell me, they were like, did you know that manatee's vagina is the most like a human vagina? And I just wondered, like, what the fuck are your plans for the apocalypse? Like, you wake up one day and all the humans are dead, and you're like, good thing I knew this fact about manatees. The fuck's wrong with you?
I gotta get to Florida. Yeah, well, that's super cool. They're Afrothers. That makes sense. Neato bandito. Ah, that's awesome. So they do have a super order. It's called Afrothera, and they're all in there with golden moles and elephant shrews and tenrics and aardvarks and hyraxes and elephants. Wow, what a wonderful diversity. What a beautiful
tremendous.
Clade. Very neat.
Tremendous. John Mathers, Yahweh and Gods and Goddesses of Canaan by John Day is free with the Internet Archive. Did you send this twice, John? I feel like maybe not. Yahwism developed out of polytheism into monolithary and then into monotheism. I still don't, yeah, I get what you're saying, especially the way they identify, but there's nothing monotheistic. Even just doing the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, different form shit. And then if you throw Satan into the mix, Satan's definitely a minor god. The fuck are you talking about? That dude's got all kinds of powers. Quagma TV says, if you haven't heard of David Peters, look up his pterosaur heresies and his bizarre phyllotree and pareidolia used to be a good paleo artist went nuts. It happens.
Huh.
It happens.
I'm still looking up manatee stuff. I'm sorry. This is Trichechidae. Trichechidae is this the suborder. This is fucking cool. I'm leaving this up. I'm gonna come back to that later. Continue on with the super chats.
James Call says, wrap me in a sheet and throw me in the ground. Life lives on life. Nah, turn me into a diamond. I want to be a diamond. I think that's cooler.
I want fucking plants and animals and fungi and bacteria to be able to feast upon my body the same way that I have feasted upon them my entire life. The circle continues. We all share in each other. This is a beautiful thing to think about. There's a concept that like not a lot of people are familiar with called biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical cycles are particular pathways by which the atoms that make life cycle throughout the world. So like the hydrological cycle, where the water moving around, the carbon cycle going from carbon dioxide to the carbon in our bodies and then down to the soil and then back into carbon dioxide over and over, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, like the way that these atoms move through every ecosystem on every part of the planet continuously over and over. The atoms that make up your body are borrowed from somebody else, and they will be given to the next thing after you're gone. Even now, the skin cells that you're shedding and the poop and the sweat and the stuff you're breathing out and just every part of you is vital nutrients for other living things. And the same is very much true after you're gone as well. Something else lives because you died. Life comes from life.
Yes. Make me into a necklace and then be like a vegan in a live chat. Tell everyone.
Yep.
Talk about it way too much. Your diamond person necklace. Some part of this diamond was his balls. Liz Chris says, Jimmy is great and love the dynamic between you two. I think this was coming in when everyone is asking about bullying me.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've only got a handful left, so if people want the show to go on longer, send in you can super chat about veganism if you want. No more free rants.
Yeah, by all means.
Captain Red Bull says you, and then follows it up by saying are, then follows it up by saying never, and then wants to follow it up with another one, but before they could, somebody else chatted. Cyberhex wrote, love the robe. What's your thoughts on the E8 lattice theory reality?
I don't know what the E8 lattice is. So I have no thoughts on it.
Did I say lattice? Did I say lattice?
You did.
Oh, my bad.
Well,
and then Captain
E8.
Red Bull said leaving.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a mathematical thing. In mathematics, the E8 lattice is a special lattice of R to the 8. Can characterize as unique, positive, define, even unimodular lattice of rank 8. The root lattice of the 8 system. I have no fucking idea, bro. I am good at. Oh, look at this matrix. Oh my gosh, that's huge. Yeah. So the fuck, bro. No, the theta function is insane. Oh, what? So yeah, this is really fun stuff that I would love to tinker on. I am not in any position. It's the same thing as the other guy who was talking about the protocells and this new quantum mechanics they were talking about. I am not a physicist. I am not a mathematician. I know enough about this to know how fucking cool it looks. And I can tinker on it and play with it and start talking about it. But like, I would look at like some of my friends over on TikTok who are actually mathematicians, and I would love to get into that. But like, as far as it is right now, it's nothing that I could speak about even close to intelligently.
Did you have those toys as a kid that had like a gear with holes in it, and then it had like a place you put the plastic gear in, and you put your pencil through the hole, and then you'd spin and you'd make cool things like that?
Spirograph, yeah.
Yeah. Those are fun. James Call says forests. I don't know how to. Is it forests or forest is? Medial incisors are way too short. Like, what's that?
I've had the name for fucking 30 years. I still don't know how it works.
Yeah, how does one add possessiveness to forest? Is it forestes, medial incisors, or just forests? Forests. Okay. Forests' medial incisors are way too short, like a capybara.
Yeah. Look at them.
Ruabak and Tequila says, why are humans so ignorant and don't believe in science? Well, it depends on the human.
You say fucking Ruabak. It's just that we grow up with what we call naive ignorance or naive realism, which is the idea that what we can see and touch and smell and taste. Our five senses are everything that we need to know about the universe. They tell us all the information that there is, and that's simply not true. And so when we come across really cool science, it's kind of difficult because you're fighting up against cognitive dissonance. And we live in a world where everybody is entitled to their opinion and thinks that that matters, and it kind of does. But also, as much as you're entitled to your own opinion, you're not entitled to your own facts, and that's kind of hard to get across sometimes. So we're better than we used to be. Humans are way less ignorant now than we used to be, and there is an upward trajectory, which is nice to think about.
Can you refresh? Your audio is suddenly a little bit hot.
Yeah, totally.
Just a little gravelly.
I'm also leaning in.
No, I was looking at your meter. Your meter wasn't clipping, but it was adding a little bit of clippy hotness still for some reason.
I will refresh right now. I'll be right back.
Cool.
I return.
We'll see how it goes. And to the person who is saying they hate slow mode, it happens, and I get it. Might I suggest becoming a channel member and skipping slow mode? Little promotion there. Anyway, Dante Verona says, I don't want to push my luck, but maybe also a video on Andrew Sarchis. So relieved we humans did not exist at the same time. Yikes.
Yeah. No,
you want
definitely.
to pronounce it
I want
correctly?
to do a few of them. I believe it is just Andrew Sarkis. But cool. But I may be conflating that with a different one. But like there's so many fucking cool things in the Permian. Dimetrodon is a Permian animal, is a stem mammal, a little proto mammal boy. And you get him in all sorts of dinosaur playsets. You see that guy, like a long flat lizard with a big sail on his back? That's not a dinosaur. That guy's more closely related to you than he is to any dinosaur, and he lived like 100 million years before any dinosaur lived. He's a stem mammal, and he was also one of the first things in the fossil record to have different sizes of teeth for doing different stuff. That's why the word dimetrodon means two measures of tooth. And so he had different teeth for different slicing situations, and he was developing warm blood, and he was a synapsid instead of a diapsid like reptiles are. He's a synapsid like you and I are. That guy is significantly more closely related. He's not your direct ancestor, but he is way more closely related to you than any dinosaur. And he was a Permian animal. The Permian was fucking sick, bro. The Permian was awesome. During community and invasion ecology class in my undergrad, I did a bunch of stuff on Theracephalians, and they're so fucking cool. Terrifying creatures, radically interesting.
Yeah. When I listen to you talk, it makes me sad that people die. I'm just like, all this stuff in your brain, and one day it'll just...
That's why you read books, bro. Like that's the cool thing. The cool thing about books is that this guy was a fucking, like, he worked for years and years and years to understand his field and to like learn deep knowledge about like what's going on in human brains, and then he just wrote it down.
But it'll never be as good as if he could sit down and like say it to you know what I mean? Like,
right, of course.
If we could do a call-in show with Oliver Sacks.
It's like a cheat code for life, dude. You know what I mean? I don't have to go through the years of experience it took the guy to get the nuance to write this book. I can just read it, you know?
Never die for us.
I'm not writing a book.
Never die.
I don't plan on it. I'm going to live forever or die trying.
But you're right. $5 Australian from TGP. I understand evolution, but is there any creature that is de-evolved, and what would be the benefit?
So remember, the language here is important. There is no such thing as de-evolution. It doesn't go backwards. However, you can re-evolve past traits. That is the thing. Which, you could call that devolving, but like I'm very careful about that language because it confuses people to think that evolution is like a linear track that you can go backwards on, and that isn't the case. It's like always forward. Right. It's always a forward direction, but sometimes you just hit the same destinations again. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so like, but yeah. So like that has been the case. Things going back to ancestral forms. Whales are a great example, going back to looking like fish when their ancestors were fish. It just depends on what your niche calls for. You know what I mean? And also remember, this is super important. When you gain fitness in one environment, you lose fitness in another environment. So as much as these whales are now more fit, they've evolved in this direction, they're not suited for life on land anymore. They've lost fitness where they came from.
Whales are pterodactyls. You heard it here.
Yep.
I'm just gonna keep making it worse. Let's see. Light Halcyon says, I just had to frog half a row of double knitting. Thanks, Forrest. JK, but really. I don't know what it means to frog
I don't know
something.
what that means, but I'm sure it's horrible, and I appreciate you going through that for us.
I don't know what to frog anything means.
Right?
Thank you, Light Halcyon. Liz Chris says, Tangents, this is a great show. Love Tangents, this is a great show.
I also love tangents. I do them for a living. This is why I do it. They're so much fun.
You should create a bakery and distribute some sort of thing that you make, which you call tangents. Tangent sounds like a dessert. No one else thinks so?
It does. It's like a jelly-filled little thing. Yeah.
Definitely citrusy in flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sweet, refreshing, jiggly cake.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Harry Chairstepper says, we just went on a tangent about tangents. Harry Chairstepper says, hey, I tend to send a rude I tried to send a rude message about vegans, but YouTube won't let me. Well, I don't need to be rude. I mean, I was fine being rude to the one, but like I said, I like vegans. I find veganism morally virtuous. I just think, shut up sometimes. Like, not every opportunity you're in a group of people has to be about you and your fucking diet. And also, it's too obvious that they do not actually. There's too many the gatekeeping and the purity test there, where it's either all or nothing. You're either fully respected as a vegan, and your attempts to reduce harm and shit like that. I've been attempting to go in a direction where I'm starting with trying to not eat mammals at all, and I feel that matters to me, and it doesn't to them. Fuck you guys. Anyway. If
I made a bakery that sold tangents, I would also make other cakes called sines and cosines and cosecants and shit.
Oh, cosecant sounds good. That sounds like a type of macaron.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. A cosecant is like a nutty macaroon. It's real toasty. Yeah. It's got some like some crumble nuts on there. It's real good.
I'd start a bakery with you. You want to do a bakery together?
A sine's pretty chill. It's like a bagel baguette.
Yeah.
A little sign.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Delicious.
Desora Tees says, Nerd Time, what is the leading hypothesis on why we don't have mitochondrial DNA from Neanderthal? Non-viable, infertile, other, don't know?
So we have mitochondrial DNA we do have one common ancestor, this theoretical person called mitochondrial Eve, that we share our mitochondrial DNA from. The difference being we did breed with Neanderthals and we did absorb some of their DNA, but just the mitochondrial DNA wasn't important to do. It didn't become a big enough part of the population to be persistent today. I'm sure there actually is some research out there about exactly this, so I'll look into it. But as far as what I can just tell you just from base knowledge is that humans evolved around 200,000 years ago. We do see we share this mitochondrial DNA because you get mitochondrial DNA from your mother because egg cells have mitochondria in them. Sperm cells also have mitochondria in them, but they're all in the tail. And so when there's this reaction and the egg and sperm fuse, the tail breaks off, you lose all the mitochondria. Can that go wrong sometimes? Yes. Can mitochondria be in the head of the sperm sometimes? Yes. Can you sometimes get mitochondria from out of it? Yes, absolutely. Blah, 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 blah. But for the same reason, we could have bred with a female Neanderthal and had one of those in there as well, but the same thing. It's just not statistically significant enough. And so we still see today all this one kind of human mitochondrial DNA that we have today. That's the lame answer. I'm sure I could give you a better one if I took some time to research it, but that's a solid enough answer for what we're talking about right now.
Did you read about that? I think it's a woman in Finland or something who she was a product of artificial insemination, and they actually used two different men's. Basically, the mitochondrial DNA come from it. So she's got two fathers and one mother.
Yeah,
it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful how it can work.
You can have genetically.
There's also the whole idea about how you can use I think it was bone marrow cells to make sperm. And you can use they took some skin cells and worked them back into egg cells, just and so think about that. You or I could get a deep skin graft and make some eggs, and then our ladies could get some bone marrow things and make sperm, and we can make babies that way. How wild would that be?
I suppose the thing that people will want to know is, would that be a method of queer parents to have biological children?
That is the implication, yeah. And well, we're not there yet, as far as I know. But the idea that, like, two lesbian parents could just harvest some egg cell or some sperm cells from the stem cells in the bone marrow and develop them into sperm cells and then go that way is a real possibility in the future. Not now.
There's wild shit with all of that. I remember a few years ago when they were like, hey, so we know stem cells are sort of like a controversy, but we just straight up figured out how to turn any cell back into stem cells. So we're good. Like, suck it.
Yeah, it's all right now.
we can reverse it.
I love it so much because it really does. It's coming closer and closer to a time when that's just one more frontier that isn't as consequential as it used to be. It used to be, if you were paralyzed, like, your life was just ruined. You couldn't do anything. You just laid around the house because you couldn't go out and work. And now with advancements in prosthesis and prosthetics and therapies and all these things, like, it's now, so much less of a hindrance that you could go out and do amazing things. We have Paralympians, you know what I mean? And so, like, that part of life is no longer as huge of a hindrance as it used to be. It's no longer as I don't want to say it's inconsequential, but, like, it's like so much differently consequential than what it was. And it's the same thing now with, like, reproductive biology. It's something that's changed so much. It's fantastic.
Womb pods. Hashtag womb pod. Dylan Fuller, or did I actually send it? Wait, Liz Chris says, don't forget to hit the like button. Dylan Fuller says, thank you, by the way, Liz Chris. Yes, don't forget to hit the like button. Dylan Fuller says, have you seen the video, The History of Everything, I guess? I'd love for you to maybe do a video on it. There's that indigestion. It's amazing. And the jingles are catchy, lol.
Because the sun is a deadly laser. Yeah, I love that video. It's great. And it sucks because that's the exact kind of video that I would want to make. And that guy made it so much better than I possibly could have. Like, that kind of thing. Oh, that's the worst part of being a creator, is when you see a video and you're like, I could have made that, but it wouldn't have been any near as good. And, like, you just feel dejected. Like, it stinks, dude, but it's so much fun.
There's a documentary that came out on YouTube. I'm not going to be specific about the subject, but the person who produced it had actually approached me 2 years ago about doing it. And I'm so glad at the time I was like, I don't think I have the resources to do that well, to hit that right, to do it right. I'm so glad that was the case, because the documentary that has come out is so beyond what I would have made. Just fucking insanely well done. That shit happens. The other most annoying thing about being a creator is the things which you are the most passionate about will get the least number of views. And the
first videos that you release that fucking blow up, you fucking hate them.
Yes.
Seriously. The very first episode of Reacteria has almost 1 million views now. It's getting close. I fucking hate that video because it was the very first one. I didn't address anything the way that I would today. It wasn't nearly as funny or as interesting as it could have been. The audio balancing sucks. I'm way louder than the video I'm reacting to. It's the worst. And what sucks is it's still blowing up now. More people are seeing my channel, and that video is getting close to 1 million. And so I'm getting so many comments on it, like, your audio balancing really could use some work. This channel is fine. I'm like, look, it's a year old. Watch something else. Video. That and fucking my sex and sensibility video. So many people fucking love that video, and I appreciate it so much. But I didn't go into nearly as much detail as I should have. There are certain things that I wasn't clear about. I conflated language in like 3 parts of it. I didn't do the citations in the video. I did them at the end to be funny, and that sucks. Like, there's so many problems with that video that I wish I could go back and fix. And also, I was a shitty writer and researcher when I made that video. Looking back at it now, it is so cringy. I'm like, oh, you could have explained that so much goddamn better. And you should have sourced that better too. Like, fuck, dude. Like, god damn, I hate that video so much. And I want to remake that one.
That's the curse. It's the curse.
Yep.
And there's the number of videos I made that when I got done, I was like, man, this video might suck. I was like, maybe I don't, fuck. And then I was like, well, I do nearly daily. So if today sucks, I'll just try harder tomorrow. And then that one takes off and people are like, wow, Jimmy, you're much more succinct than usual. And I'm like, I just felt I was being lazier, but maybe that makes it more attainable. I don't know. And maybe you guys are stupid. No, that'd be a dick thing to say to your audience. Liz Chris says, don't forget the knowledge cookies at your bakery.
Delicious.
Little knowledge cookies. That's a reference to your metaphor earlier.
Mm-hmm. They'll be like fortune cookies, and each one will have just like a cool science fact in them.
Or a dad joke.
Or a dumbass dad joke. Yeah, for sure.
Harry Chairstepper said, this is the last one, by the way, everybody, unless you want to get it in. $5 or more if you wanna make the show continue on. Harry Chairstepper says, Christians are always irrationally angry when you challenge their beliefs. Pretty funny after the way they try to frame atheists. Yeah,
man. I started writing like a list of like shit that theists have said to me. Mm-hmm. And like because I wanted to make a video about it. These are all actual things that people like, oh, you don't believe in God? I guess you're not as good of a person as I thought you were. You've got to either be crazy or stupid to believe that this all happened by accident, that there isn't a God in charge. I feel so sorry for you. You must be so sad. Right, but
these
when
are so
you get
tame.
married... Mm-hmm. Oh, no, they get better.
Okay.
How can I even trust you if you say you believe in God? Like, if you take an oath that has no basis.
Yeah.
You're telling me you can look at all this. Oh, you seem so smart. How is it that you don't believe in God? I swear atheists are the dumbest and most delusional people on the planet. I wrote that one down verbatim. And this was my favorite one. This was said to me. I'm not going to say who said this, but this is a person who was very close to me. Said, don't worry. God is going to bring you to your knees and destroy everything you love. And that will prove to you that he's in charge. And then you'll know that he's the king. And like, wow.
What a dick.
Yeah. And so like, those are all things that people have said to me. And like, and then they're going to fucking call me and be like, why do you have to push your beliefs on people with a call-in show that people call into for free of their own free will
and voluntarily watch? Yeah.
Right. Fuck, dude.
So years ago, I went to war with the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptists over their Make America Straight Again. If you ever see somebody refer to me as Mr. Pumpkin, it has to do with that whole series. And so they're this super anti-queer church that we're advocating for like the death penalty to queer people. And so we had a whole thing, a back and forth, and they became very not happy with me. And the funniest thing of it all was all of the threats I would receive because I'm a queer man who is a queer, not just a queer man, but a queer activist. All of the threats that I would receive from quote unquote straight men of being raped to death. And I was literally just like, I don't know, guys. How did you get that erection if I'm the problem here? So that's fun. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
You may hate me, but remember who made you come.
Yeah, right. That's gross. Harry Chairstepper says, maybe if I feed enough super chats, Forrest will be my real friend, TM. Well, let's go off on the next 5 minutes are going to be about parasocial relationships. We're going to, oh man. God. I think that's it. I think we're done unless something pops in now. Do you already know what shows are coming up, or do you want me to tell the people? Oh wait, here's another one. Yeah. I gotta wait for it to refresh in my system, not just be on there. Here we go. Heathen Queen says we need to do SNL style hate comment live readings with creators. I think you mean Jimmy Kimmel live style, because that's a Jimmy Kimmel bit. Yeah,
I'd be into that.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Gutsick got another amazing idea and fucking stole it. She stole it from me by thinking of it and doing it first. And it was like a reading hate comments for fun and profit. And like that's what she titled the video. And it was exactly what she did. It was so good. She's like, I'm also monetizing this, so I will be making money off of these comments. It's so good. Oh man.
Yeah.
Tell me what the shows are, because I don't know.
All right, so tomorrow, tune in. I'll be on with Skeptic Nikki, also known as Beat the Cult. We're going to be doing an episode of HOSTility. On Wednesday, Matt Dillahunty has Aron Ra on, and they're just going to talk about snakes for a couple hours, and you can call in about snakes, and they're going to show everybody their snakes. None of these are euphemisms. It's just snakes, 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 snakes. I like it. Thank you. Yeah. And then Thursday, Arden will be with student Dr. Ben on the Transatlantic Call-In Show. Then on Saturday, I wonder how, because there's no way this is syncing up well, especially with you trying to actually say the actual words. But on Saturday, we'll do, I don't know what time we're going to start it yet, but it'll be, probably 9 or 10 at night. We'll count in the new year together. We'll do a countdown to midnight, similar to the Christmas show, whatever hosts from the line want to show up who don't have social lives may do so. Forrest, do you have a social life? You going to count down? Or you got a party to go to?
I'm absolutely going to pop in for a little while. I do have a party to go to, but I will pop in for a little while and do things. If not just another hour or so like I did last time. We do a lot of jokes on this show. I got to tell you, poop jokes, they're not my favorite, but they're a solid number 2.
I wish I'd kill for a solid number 2 right now. I ate such garbage. Oh, were you trying to go out on that? Sorry. Oh.
No, I was just giving you one more before we wrapped it up.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right, great. All right, well, good night, everyone. You want to say goodbye? Tell people where to find you and then say goodbye?
Thanks so much for tuning in. Head over to my YouTube channel and to my TikTok channel if you want to learn more science. Find me on them internets. You can go to valkailabs.com to find all of my socials that are any kind of important. And also follow me on Patreon. You can be on Patreon and help me out by allowing me to afford food. That would mean a lot to me too. Please go check out my new series called The Light of Evolution. I worked really hard on it. I think you'd really enjoy it. It'll help you understand evolutionary biology in a totally new way. What else? That's it. Those are all the most important things. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye-bye.
Bye.